Hello everyone. I'm gonna turn down the volume for the music because it's a little loud. Right there, right? Hello everyone. Hello. I am Trooper SJP and this is the Academic Foxhole. And I was gonna do one more stretch exercise while we were chatting. There we go. How are you all doing? What is happening? What is new? Hello. It is Saturday. It is PS4 Saturday, and it is time to play The Outer Worlds, and we have not played The Outer Worlds together in 18 years, approximately, which means I have forgotten how to play. But you know, I'm here. Hello, Ice Bunny, Rissa, Barantor, Shawltails. How are you? Hey, Shawltails, how are you doing? It is the blue beer's more blue today. Looks good. Yeah. I mean, when you saw me, it was like the day after I dyed it, and it's always the darkest before the dawn, right before it is dyed, and then then it lightens up a little bit with each washing. But that is how you do. That is how you do, and it will probably just continue to get a little bit lighter, until it's all grown out, and then I have to re-dye it. But I think I'm out of blue hair dye, so the next time I dye it, it's going to be. Let me pause this. Yeah, it's probably going to be purple the next time I dye it, because that is what the dye that I currently have is. What is happening with my chat? Chat, stop that. There we go. Hello, Yomard, and also Atomica. How are you? I need to figure out what I want for lunch. Red. Oh no, Ice Bunny. I would not do red. I don't think that red would look good on me. Blues and purples are where I'm at. I once, when I was back in the army, I did like a cranberry rinse on my hair, which was a very, very subtle sort of red, but like you really couldn't see it until like it hit the light, and it wasn't like a fire engine red. It was a cranberry, so it was sort of a little bit darker, and had a little bit of purple to it. So. Something like that I could probably see myself doing again. But generally speaking, I'm not going to do a green. I'm not going to do a big red. I'm going to go with cooler colors. Blues and purples is where I would probably go, and I wouldn't do a green. I wouldn't do that. Ooh, hot dogs. I do love hot dogs. I think hot dogs are amazing. You act as if Dot doesn't have the hookup for hair dye. No. I would just get it through Amazon like I normally do. There's a brand that I've done my research, and there's a brand that I really like that doesn't bleed a lot. So like when you dye your beard this color, it doesn't bleed. So like I've got it. I just have to go, but I have another color at the moment, and I want to try the purple and see how I feel about it. Atomic said, I did red once back when I had hair. Girlfriend at the time swore she knew what she was doing, woke up with a crimson mask, and couldn't go to school for a week till I managed to scrub it out. Oh, ouch. Yeah, so, I am not I don't think that, like, a bright red would look good on me at all. I don't think most of those hot colors would look good on me. But also... as I said to somebody else at some point in time, personality-wise, I am blue, not red, right? Just in terms of, like, my sister is red and I am blue. My sister likes to get really angry and yell and gets like that, and I do not. Like, I am almost never angry. I think, yeah, I can't even think of a time. I've been frustrated before. I can get frustrated. I can get irritated, but I really can't think of when I've ever been angry. When things happen that might make other people angry, I get sad. I don't tend to get angry. What do you put on hot dogs? Oh, me personally, I put, Atomic puts the works, which in New England is onions, relish, and mustard. And on my hot dogs, like, it depends on the kind of hot dog I'm going for, but on my hot dogs, I will tend to do something like mustard, mayo, relish, ketchup. That tends to be my full hot dog situation. It takes a lot to get me angry, but then look out. Yeah, it's just not my personality. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really an angry sort of person. Only hair dyeing experience I had was unintentionally bleaching my hair with hydrogen peroxide. Yormud, how did that happen? How did you accidentally bleach your hair with hydrogen peroxide? I want to know how this story happened. This is what I need to know. Um, yeah, so I don't really think of myself as particularly red as a personality, and so I can't really imagine dyeing my hair red either. It just doesn't really feel like me. I also enjoy a linguica slice with onions and cheese sauce. Oh. Um, yeah, you can, yeah, and the thing is, mustard mayo relish ketchup is like my cheese is like my standard hot dog, but if I'm gonna go and do, but like there are other things you can do with your hot dog where then you wouldn't put that on there. Like if I'm gonna have a chili dog, my chili dog is not gonna have uh, mayo or relish or mustard. Like it's just gonna have chili and cheese. That would be my chili dog. Yeah, so you can put like a lot of different things. When you're having a traditional hot dog, if I'm gonna have a different kind of sausage, I'll put different things on it. Like if I'm gonna have a Sicilian sausage, I'm probably not gonna put much on it on the Sicilian sausage because it's good where it's at. Uh, but the Sicilian sausage is gonna be like in a sourdough roll, so that's also it's gonna be different. Like it just depends on like what are you doing? That's what it is all about. My personality is almost exclusively red black. Oh, interesting. Atomica, I would like to say that I appreciate that you are describing your personality in terms of color because I do that all the time and people do not know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about. And I'm very happy to see somebody else describe their personality in terms of color. I am mostly blue. Um, Yeah, I'm mostly blue. It can be like a lighter blue or a darker blue, just sort of depending. But generally speaking, I would say absolutely blue. Absolutely. Sauerkraut and bacon, that's also very good. Chili cheese is good, sauerkraut and bacon. But of course, like I wouldn't put sauerkraut and chili on the same hot dog. You know? So it's all about the combo. Yeah, chili cheese dogs. Yormord. Oh, I had chicken pox when I was 17 or 18. And so the chicken pox on my head opened. Oh. And your mom, oh, I see. I see. Yeah. No, that makes sense, Yormord. Uh,
Name game.
Ice Buddy says she's so pale that everything is red to dark brown because that gets her looking more like a living human. Ah. Riss is like probably more blue-black. Yeah. Your hair went from black to nearly hazel. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Also, BP Phantom, I see you. My closet looks like a cartoon character since it's almost exclusively black jeans and t-shirts. Black jeans and t-shirts. You could have said like blue jeans and black t-shirts. Like you could mix it up. Speaking of jeans and t-shirts, a friend of mine, when I was in the Army, early, said, when you have to have 4 pairs of jeans, you have to have black, traditional blue, light blue, and then something else. And I was just looking at my jeans that I have right now, and I have 2 pair of jeans. And so I am sorely lacking in my 4 pair of necessary jeans, and I know that I need to work it out, and I will at some point. I just haven't done it yet. That's all. No, that's even the jeans are black. Oh, both. Okay. All right. So, are you a cartoon character, or are you like a metalhead from the '80s who only wore black? Willie, to find out what your metal, or we just have to know what's on the t-shirts. That this is what we're gonna have to know. Black's about half my wardrobe, which is down from my 20s and 30s. I try to have more color, especially in the last couple of years. I had an ex of mine who said, you look really good in green and in brighter colors. So I do try to wear brighter colors. Like I'll try to wear like a yellow or like a bright green. I try to wear more colors so that I am more exciting. But, you know, also because look, here's the thing. Ice Bunny, I'm a natural dark blonde or liverwurst color typical Scandi. Atomic says, like, when I wear my green Zelda shirt, people tend to check if I'm feeling okay. Art historians are the one. There are many people who like to wear all black. Beatniks, anybody who's a hipster, like, it's a thing. The yellow suit from Fate of Cthulhu was chef's kiss. And so here's the thing. I know that American men's masculinity is so narrow that, generally speaking, American men rarely wear color. They wear black, blue, gray. And when I was in Germany, like, German men would wear red, they wear all sorts of exciting colors, and I don't want to be like your stereotypical American dude who's like afraid of color, who just doesn't wear color at all. So I am trying to fight that sort of socialization not to wear color that a lot of American men have, and I want to take advantage of the fact that I can wear different colors and have them look good. Like, I want to, like, you know, white. Oh, I had a pair of white jeans when I was living in Germany. It was so good. I should get another pair of white jeans. I should do that because white jeans are awesome. But, like, you know, I want to wear more color. I don't want to sort of fall prey to American masculinity, which is pretty boring. You know what I mean? So I try to, like, it's part of my process of trying to dress with more life. More life is what I would say. Hey, Courier! Happy Saturday! And Thomas says, I'm a metalhead from the 80s. Yep, there you go. Even though I was born in 82, because I had some older cousins who got me into it when I was young. While everyone in my teen years was getting to stuff like Korn and Green Day, I was listening to Maiden and Ozzy. Well, see, Atomica, I was in the 80s. There are different groups of people who wear all black, and some of those people are goths. Well, we called them alternative at the time, and some of them are metalheads. And I was like, jeans and t-shirts, that sounds less goth and more metal. And I was glad to see that I was correct on that one. By the way, I'm ice on my wrist. Ed Sheeran has a new song out, and he's a vampire in a pink suit in the video. Ooh, I know he's not American, but I thought it was a bold choice for a redhead. Well, I think that I believe that for women, pink and redheads are often thought to go together well. Whether or not that's true or not, it's a different thing altogether, but I'm thinking about like Molly Ringwald, Pretty in Pink, etc. They also rock the jogging pants and a matching hoodie. What is this, a Trooper stream? It is. It's been a while, PH, since I've been able to do my Saturday stream, but here I am. I am here. At least American men will wear flannel. Getting a man in the UK, Ireland to wear anything that isn't black and blue is a nightmare. Oh, we do at least wear flannel. Thomas says, I prefer my colors and accents. Like in high school, I would mostly wear colored chains and leather braces. But I will say that I was lucky to be in some communities where wearing color is not frowned upon. Like, of course, a lot of men of color will wear color. You can usually tell when you watch the Oscars where you've got a bunch of white dudes who are wearing tuxedos that don't actually fit them because they haven't got them tailored, and it's super embarrassing. And then you'll have like a bunch of men of color wearing like really exciting colors. But also, I was really big into country music in the 90s, and cowboys will wear color. Like cowboys will wear, I have this amazing, great cowboy shirt, which I no longer have, and I'm very sad about it. And unfortunately, it's no longer the 80s, so it's really hard to get cowboy shirts that look like this anymore. But it was mostly black, but it had like a yoke that was like teal and like a lot of amazing sort of 80s colors. And that shirt was so good. It was such a good shirt. I loved it. Yomord says, oh, my closet is relatively mixed. I'm not a fan of colorful pants, but I love plaid shirts, and other patterned shirts are often relatively colorful. That's all I'm saying is, Yomord, is that I have a story about this actually, that German men dress well. I mean, maybe not all German men dress well, but German men dress better than American men, is all I'm going to say. Hey, Volus. Atomica says, I was always huge into pink in October for breast cancer, and when people see a huge metal head and a pink bandana and change, you get looks. Oh, pink. I look good in pink. At least the last time I was wearing pink, I looked pretty good in it. I haven't worn pink in a while. I should find something that is in pink and then wear it. I need a pink something. I'm going to get a pink something, and I have a pink t-shirt, but it's just like an undershirt. I need other things. If you wait long enough, it'll be the 80s again. I don't know if I'll be alive in those 80s because that's 60 years from now. And that would, I mean, I could be. There are people who are alive in their hundreds, you know. It's possible. Rissa says, my favorite sweater in 88 was a marled fuchsia black. Ooh, that sounds amazing. I love it. Courier says, obviously part of what's been so enjoyable about transitioning my wardrobe has been being a gender congruent, but not a small part was that mainstream's men fashion, aka everyday wear, is atrocious, ill-fitting, and boring. You know, that's on those men, though. That's on those men. It's on those men. Vola says, here, a well-dressed person in 80s and 90s was a fella with a Canadian tuxedo and sneakers. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to tell you the story, because I'm icing my wrist before I start the game. But I'm going to start the game. So when I arrived in Germany in 1992, you know, I flew in to Frankfurt, and I took the train, got my way all the way to Augsburg, where I was stationed. It was like my first day there. And I arrive at base, on the base. So Germany, 1992. You can absolutely dress well as a man. You just need to thrift like everybody else. Yep. So I went in, I got on base, and I signed into my unit and was like, I am here. I've got I've got all my stuff, my duffel bag and all that business. And I arrived, they're like, okay, so they signed me in. And this one guy who was, hey Prax, who was, oh, and by the way, I did not forget about that name game, BP Phantom. I'm just going to finish the story first. Oh, speaking of which, I just realized I need to do something. So I arrive, and this guy in the unit who's like, he signed me in. He's like, okay, hey, so you're brand new. I'm going to give you a tour. And I was like, okay. So I put my duffel bag down. They got me a barracks room. I put my bag down and all that. And they're like, I'm going to give you a tour. So he took me on a tour of the base to see what was on the base. And then he's like, okay, let's go. We're going to go off base. I'm going to show you the city, Augsburg. And I was like, cool. And so we get on the train, the trolley, and like we're going around. And he starts to give, like, he is giving me important knowledge. So the first thing is that he says, hey, do you see that car over there? And there was like a white car with a red, like a fireman's light, like a police light, you know, in the dash. He's like, do you know what that is? I was like, I don't know, like the fire chief? And he's like, no, there are prostitutes in that car. And I was like, it's a car of ill repute? And he's like, yeah. So apparently, right, he's like, so he said like, and that house has like this, there was a house that had like red Christmas lights on it. And it was a brothel. He's like, so in Germany, you know, if they've got the red lights on them, that means that they're like a place for prostitution. And I was like, oh, thanks. So then we're like, continue on our travels. And then he says to me, he says, you have to watch out. And I was like, what's up? He's like, everyone in Germany is gay. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah. Watch out, because everyone in Germany is gay. And I was like, what? And he pointed out a German man, and there was a German man on the street who was wearing a red blazer. He had glasses, and his glasses frames were red, and he was wearing like maybe a yellow shirt or something and some kind of pants. And he goes, and he had a nice haircut. And he's like, look at that guy. Like, he's clearly gay. And I was like, what makes you think he's gay? And he's like, well, I mean, look how he's dressed and look at his haircut. And I was like, I mean, I don't, and he's like points out like everybody, and like every person in Germany, in Augsburg, looked gay according to US standards, right? So, yeah, there was, I know, that's not how any of this works. And there was Tamaka says, the hardest part of dressing fashionable for me is as a larger guy, my weight fluctuates up and down by 10 pounds every few months. So nothing ever fits me perfectly, and I can't afford to buy fitted clothing every 6 months. Yeah, that sucks. Hey, Schmelzer. And he pointed out all the German women, and he's like, those German women are clearly all lesbians, because a lot of them weren't wearing as much makeup as American women tend to do in the 90s. American women wore a lot of makeup, especially in an army context, and like the German women just were not. And the men had good haircuts, and so he's like, yeah, everybody in Germany is gay. And I was like, I just don't think that's true. I said to him, I said that's not really possible. And anyway, so there were two websites, which I don't know if they exist anymore, but they did exist in the early aughts, late 90s. I really don't know if they exist anymore, but the websites were gay man or European, lesbian or German woman, right? Because American fashion is so... American fashion and habits were so what they were that, I mean, yeah, is he gay or European? Yes, right? And so, like, basically, like, European men just dress better than American men. Like, they will show their body, they have better haircuts, they're more fashionable, they wear more color, they just look better. And according to a lot of American men, if you're a man who looks good at all, you must be gay. Because to be really straight, you just have to look like crap all the time. And if you don't look like crap, then you must be gay. And I was like, this is... what? That was like my... I just was like, that's... oh, okay, what? But it was interesting. I just thought it was like sad, but also weirdly humorous. Now the real question, did he sound offended? Oh, no. This was the army. So he was trying to warn me. He was trying to warn me so that I didn't, because remember, it was illegal to be gay in the army at that point in time. If they found out, like, they could put you in prison, right? So that was not a good thing. But would that not make the sex workers be out of work? Yeah, I mean, look, it's just not possible for an entire country to be gay, but he clearly was thinking about haircuts, right? European, not British. Well, Brits have decided to exclude themselves from being European now, so you don't have to clarify. Although I would say that a lot of there is a gayer British as well. That is also a thing because of Oscar Wilde. Look, Ron Jeremy is the epitome of male appearance. Anyone else must be gay. Yep, Schmelzer, that's exactly how it is. Ron Jeremy. And you're like, oh. Yeah, he was, yeah, so it was, I presume this person was not in intelligence. I do not think so. But it was interesting, right? It was interesting. And it was just one of those things where, most of those guys I knew in the army had poor luck dating. Because it's the same old thing. People who are European, maybe you don't know this, but there is a thing that happens quite a lot if you're looking at young people in the US, where you'll see a couple, like a heterosexual couple, a male-female couple, and the woman will have clearly, and they're going out on the town, and the woman will clearly have spent hours getting ready. Like, her hair's amazing, her makeup's amazing, her outfit's amazing, she looks like $1,000,000, and the guy's wearing some sweatpants and a t-shirt and some ratty jeans. Yeah. Well, he may not be wearing sweatpants. That's well, actually he might be. Actually, he might be. Sweatpants, cut off jeans, maybe, ratty sneakers, t-shirt, and a baseball cap. And he looks like he got out of bed like 5 minutes ago and didn't even shave. And that will happen a lot. Like, that happens a lot because our gender norms are pretty... they can be pretty rough. They can be pretty rough. Yeah, they can be pretty rough is all I'm saying there. I see the pizza glasses are going to Atlanta. Where are my Pizza Hut glasses? What? Where? Good job to both those people. But those sweatpants cost them $300. Maybe. Al Bundy is more or less the ideal man in the eyes of that army person. Yeah. Yeah, I spent 40 minutes to look normal. That's because I've gotten fast. Mm-hmm. PH, society does look down on women who don't perform that particular role, and it's sad. Yeah. By the way, thank you. This is not a Pizza Hut glass. I actually bought these specifically because I love these glasses, and I was, these cups. I like them, and they make me very happy, so I bought them. But I did not get them from Pizza Hut. But I will note, I only have 2 of them because I've packed up all of my kitchenware. Almost all of it, not all of it, but like 90% of all my kitchenware is packed up and put in storage. But I have with me, I bought like a mess kit um, so that I have like a little mess kit so I can eat off of plates, like a mess plate. And I have 2 cups and 2 bowls, and a mustache mug. Like I have my mustache mug, 2 of these glasses, these cups, 2 bowls, and a mess kit. So that at this moment, I have the very basics of food utensils that I can use. Yes. I had I had a girlfriend who would actually get mad at me because I said she didn't need makeup, and she really didn't at all. Are there any Eat in the Pizza Hut left? That's a good question. I did not mean to imply you acquired them in an underhanded fashion. No, it's fine. And you have to remember, like, when I was in the Army, I was like in the Army with a lot of women who would wake up, like if we had to be at PT at 6 in the morning, physical training, they would wake up at like 5 or a little bit earlier so they could do their makeup before they did physical training, which, by the way, was just like we're wearing t-shirts, shorts, maybe sweats, and we're just doing a lot of push-ups, but you know, they felt like they had to be fully made up. And so for them, seeing German women who just were not doing that, they were like, oh my God, they're all lesbians. Or seeing German men who would, like, I don't know, have a good haircut, they'd be like, oh my God, they're all gay. And I was like, no, it's just that American gender norms are pretty narrow. That's all. Like, it's not, that's not what it is, but it's fine. It's fine. So it was just, and that was like I mean, for me, I was like, what, 20? I was 20 years old at the time. And it was good. It was good because it let me see the ways in which gender is a social construct, right? Everyone talks about like, oh, so people will say, right, gender is a social construct. And then people will say, no, it's not. It's totally real. Just because something's a social construct doesn't mean it's not real. But people get really, like, there are a lot of people who are really mad at the idea when people say that gender is a social construct. They say it's not, and very turfy people get all weird about it. But like, you just have to travel. Like, all you have to do is travel to a different place, and then you will see very quickly that gender is indeed a social construct, because what is considered masculine or feminine or androgynous is just really different in Norway than it is in Georgia, or, you know what I mean? Or in Thailand, or in, you know, and so like, you just have to travel. That's it. Like, or even, you don't even have to leave the country. You just have to go to different parts of the United States and you can see how it's different. Like, that's all. That's all. East Coast, we have our carry-out delivery locations now, and they're all closed. Oh, yeah. The problem is most people don't really understand what social construct means. Yeah. Yes, Courier. Yes. Like, I wanted to give you a more profound statement, but I'm just thinking about how that is true, and it makes me sad, because it's, I suppose the question is it because they don't understand, or they don't want to understand, because the idea of something being a social construct can be too scary? Like, really sort of understanding that many things are social constructs and are not inherent might just be too scary, and so maybe that's why they just don't want to know. They just don't want to think about it. But yeah, I think that perhaps that's part of it, that people don't want to. It can be overwhelming, I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it can be overwhelming to think about the fact that actually, no, you don't intrinsically have to do that. You know? I mean, a lot of people, people have it. Because here's the thing about social constructs. Constructs are about power. And people are taught these social constructs from the time they're very, very young, and they're often punished for not embodying them properly. And nobody wants to think about. It can be overwhelming, right? To sort of really think about the ways, how heavily we are socialized. People want to think that we're our own individual, and everything we do for our own reasons because we want to, and it's our personal taste, and we're not influenced by anyone. And nobody really wants to think about the ways in which we are influenced, because I think it can be overwhelming and a little scary. So I think people just decide that these things, I think it's easier to imagine that these things are intrinsic, that it's just natural and normal for girls to like pink and boys to like blue, even though that was the opposite last century. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, yeah, I feel like that's what we got going on. PH says, it's a jungle gym we build as a society and are then obligated to use, even though it's not the most fun and it can be dangerous. Yeah, because for some people, it's super fun. Schmelzer says, to be fair, I'd rather have gender norms that let everyone wear sweatpants and t-shirts if that's what they feel comfortable in, than ones that judges everyone for not meeting some fashion standard. The thing is that sweatpants and t-shirts are a fashion standard. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. That is also a fashion standard. And it is the fashion standard for American men. Like, if American men, here's a story, Schmelza. This is one that you might find horrifying. There was a man, he was a straight man, and he was with his wife, and they were on the bus, and they were getting off the bus, I think it was, and his wife needed to get something, and so she said, honey, could you hold my purse for me while she had to get something out of her jacket or whatever it was, or she had to put on her jacket or take off her jacket. Something like this was happening. And so she handed him her purse, and he was holding her purse while she was getting a jacket over her. And somebody saw him holding a purse and shot him dead because figured he was gay, because men don't wear purses. And he was murdered for being gay. He wasn't gay because he was carrying his wife's purse. And, that is part of our society's gender norms that say that if men are not wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, there's something wrong with them, and then they can face violence, right? Like, and that guy was murdered. So sweatpants and a t-shirt are also a fashion standard, right? Like, it's like, you can think that like, oh, fashion standard is like tuxedos, but like, actually sweatpants and t-shirts are fashion standards. And in the US, men who dress differently are often bullied or harassed or attacked. Like, it's like, you know, yeah. Ice Bunny says, for me, it was the opposite. My family was so against makeup. Yeah. That's what I was saying about Germany. And I remember I got shouted at by my great grandpa for wearing longer dangly clip earrings, and now I try my best to look as put together as I can and flea markers are my hunting ground. Yeah, no, that's what kind of what I was saying, is that a lot of German women just were not as made up as American women. Hescape says, I live in the UK, and just traveling to different parts of Europe open your eyes to how gender is a social construct. Yeah, and it's not bad. Like, it just is what it is. Let's see. Rissa says, we also aren't very good about teaching how to think critically in our school system. Yes. Thomas says, worst fashion statement of my generation has to be normalizing pajama pants in public. You know, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what people wear. People wear what they want to wear. But of course, it's never that simple, right? Because the white college girl outfit standard now, because everything, look, and the thing is, wearing pajama pants could be an amazing, liberating blow against the patriarchy, right? When American women are expected to always be put together and wear a lot of clothes that are really expensive, pay more for everything, and do all this work to be the object of the male gaze, wearing a bunch of pajama pants is like liberating and like a really great FU to the system. But men are always wearing like sweatpants, and so then them wearing sweatpants is not an FU to the system, right? So it's one of those things where like, it's all contextual, right? It's all contextual. How late am I streaming this afternoon? I don't know yet. We will see. I mean, probably at least 3:30. Like, that Smith feels real weird when we were just talking about how women were expected to do too much. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Right, that when women are expected to do 400% because men like looking at them, a woman being like, F you, I'm not shaving my armpits in the United States, and I'm gonna put on a pair of pajama pants, that becomes a blow for like a statement against self-objectification, statement against just, you know, being catered to for the male gaze. It's a way to sort of reclaim oneself because of the ways in which the expectations from women are just so much heavier. And then, right, so like, you have to look at it contextually, is what I would say. Ice Bunny says, I have rosacea. I do makeup because I do not need strangers to think I, the one who never drinks, is an alcoholic because of a skin condition. Well, they may not. They might just think you have rosacea. You know what I mean? Like, I have rosacea, and I've got some redness here, and I am not currently wearing makeup today because I'm not in a show. And that's just like a bunch of work I'm not going to do right now. But also, of course, I'm a man, so I'm allowed to, I can get away with not wearing makeup, whereas women are often punished if they don't wear makeup. At least in the United States. In other countries, it's different. So, you know, it's one of those things. I'm drinking orange juice, by the way. I'm almost at it. Atomica, it wasn't so much not putting themselves together, it just always had the feel of I just got out of bed and came to school, which is a little gross as a concept, male or female. Hey, Higgyland, but here's the thing, guys do it all the time. That's the thing. Guys roll out of bed and come to school all the time and nobody calls them out on it. Everyone's like, oh, that's fine, you're being a dude. That's what dudes do, right? So like, we have to like, I just think we have to think about the double standards, right? Wherein, I mean, look, I'm just saying, I remember watching in New England in January, in the middle of snow times, on a Friday night, when the guy and the gal would go to a frat party and she was in a very small bodycon dress with heels, and I was very concerned about hypothermia for her, and he was just like wearing sweats, and he looked like crap, and she looked like $1,000,000, and that was considered completely acceptable, that he spent no time looking nice, and she spent all the time looking nice. And if she had worn like a pair of sweats, people would be like, oh, what's wrong with you, right? Like, we just have to kind of recognize those differences. I'm actually really good, Higgyland. Also, there was like a interview with like, let her wear sweats. There was an interview with Billie Holiday when she was talking about being on tour and how difficult being on tour was. She was the only woman, right, in the jazz band, and she got paid less than the men did, because of course she did. But she talked about how much more expensive it was for her to go on tour, because the guys could just wear the same black suit every day, and also it could be a little bit rumply and whatever, they didn't care, but she had to have like really nice dresses that were expensive. She had to get them dry cleaned, and so she was always like getting less sleep. She had to go to the dry cleaners when she went to a new stop and get everything taken care of. She always had to do her hair and makeup, which is money. It costs money. Her hair and makeup is like not cheap. Like that she had to do all of this extra work, which cost money, in order to look nice, because if she didn't, audiences would not find that acceptable. And I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, it says it on my most American standards for like, I don't know if you all know this. I mean, the women in the chat probably do know this, but if you have a shirt that's a woman's shirt and you take it to the dry cleaners, it will cost you more to dry clean it than a man's shirt that you take to a dry cleaners. They call it the pink tax, right? Like, if a woman's blazer will cost more to dry clean than a men's blazer, right? So like, women's haircuts cost more than men's haircuts, even if men have long hair. Or if a woman has really short hair, her haircut still costs more than a dude with short hair, right? So like, there are all these ways in which women are just have to spend more money than men do, and they get paid less, right? So like, there's like structural oppression that women deal with that people don't pay attention to, but like, it's there. Razors, yeah, Riss is correct. Razors that are pink are also more expensive. Oh, you have to leave for a half hour? Okay, we will see you later.
Somebody's watching me.
Ooh, I always feel that somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Luftwaffe 1. Luftwaffe 1. Welcome in. It is so good to have you here. Thank you very much. You know, I do have a song that I have to sing for BP Phantom, as a matter of fact, and I'm gonna sing that. But I think after I do this, I should be good. Hescape says there's so many double standards in general. If a man is promiscuous, he's considered one of the lads and is praised. If a woman is promiscuous, she's considered a slut and ashamed. Oh yeah, like there's just a lot, and there's a lot, and I just think about the incels, the red pillars, the black pillars, those guys who are like, women have all the power in society, and it was like, I don't know why you think that. Like, I really don't know where that came from, you are clearly not paying attention to like what is happening in society, because you're kind of in a narcissistic space right now. What are you talking about? Now I'm making you feel old. Oh, well, if I'm gonna, yeah, I mean, yes. That's what I do here. I make people feel old like me. But BP Phantom resubbed, and I want to sing the resub song for BP Phantom. The name game. Come on, everybody. I say now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name. I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F. Or an M will appear. And then I say bo at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fan, or info. Then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can't rhyme. But if the first two letters are ever the same, I drop them both and say the name. Like Bob, Bob drop the B's, Bo, or Fred, Fred drop the F's, for Red, or Mary, Mary drop the M's, Mo, Airy. That's the only rule that is contrary. BP Phantom, BP Phantom, BP Phantom, Bo, EP Phantom, Banana Phantom, Fo, PP Phantom, Fee, Fi, Mo, Meepy Phantom. BP Phantom. Thank you so much for that resub, BP Phantom. And now I have finished like all of my wrist stuff, so I can put my brace back on and we can start the Outer Worlds and find out what the mystery is of like where we're going. There's like a whole mystery situation that I feel like we should, I don't know, find out about in some kind of a way, probably. I don't even know. Let's ooh, Peril and Gorgon. Yeah, no, that's fine. Sure, cool. Yeah, fine. Yeah, but that's because men are the conquerors. It's always been the excuse for why it's okay for men and not women, because people are stupid. Yeah, but of course, I think there were times when it was different, right? There are different cultures and times where that was not the case. What gets me is the people who think being trans is a choice. Like, I saw all this and thought, yes, this is what I'd like to experience voluntarily. I never thought about that, Courier. And with an F, very plain. Dude, you would have been fun to BS with while in the motor pool. Oh my gosh. I had so much fun in the motor pool. You know what I mean? Like, I would BS in the motor pool. I'd have such a good time. Oh man. I will say, I always really enjoyed when we had to do motor pool. There were a lot of things with the army that maybe people wouldn't have liked, but I actually thought was great. Do you know what I mean? Because like you get these really great memories of like just like working on the Humvee, doing the stuff you need to do, but then like smoking and joking and or like playing pranks on each other. I love that. There was just like good times there. I make sure that none will say to my niece that she's not to be an artist or designer or astrophysicist. Yeah. By the way, I mean, no man, like they did with me. Yeah. I worked in motor. So I remember we did a lot of pranks when we were in the motor pool. Also, I think that I just think I need to go and, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Here? Nope. Oh, sorry about that. Pardon me. I'm like, what are my, okay. See, we haven't played since, April. So we're going to just try to figure out what our commands are. What is this one? Okay. And what is this one? Great. What does this do? Oh, great. That's time dilation. What is that? That's more of that. Okay. What is this? More of that. That's great. No. So I think, that's okay. I was like, how do I get to my, everything pulls a gun out. Okay. So here you go. This is where we're at. We are in a map. We just need to leave, right? That's it. The ones who walk away from Gorgon. Pick up Lucky's trail at the Sprat Shack. Okay, so, that's what we're doing, right? Yes. This is what we're doing. We're doing that. That's it. Uh, this, I don't know who we're gonna take with us. I don't even know if we have everything we. Wait, this is the no. We don't need to go to Ambrose Manor. We need to go to yeah. Now I know where we are. We have to go to this planet, and this is what we're doing. Yeah, we want to go to Gorgon. Yes. Boom. Also, the ones who walk away from Gorgon, that's a reference to Ursula K. Le Guin. It seems like there's a lot of camaraderie in the military. That's a big reason why anybody who did like it liked it. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why. There are a lot of reasons. I can give you a lot of reasons why I liked the military. And it wasn't just the camaraderie, although that certainly camaraderie certainly was part of it. Berenger says that the time a guy was really hungover and told our sergeant he was going to clean out the belly pans on a bulldozer and just straight up went to sleep between the tracks. Like, yeah, there are a lot of reasons why one might enjoy being in the military. So she's our fighter. We're gonna have her. We're on Gorgon. Let's also have Ellie. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go those two. I mean, we might have. See, maybe. I worked with the DAV from a really early age, and the military just wasn't an option after I did paperwork for a landmine paraplegic when I was 15. It's funny that the greatest thing that will protect you the most in the Army is walking around with a green notebook. That's also true, as a matter of fact. I mean, one, camaraderie certainly was one of the things that I really appreciated. I also loved my job. Doing military intelligence was, like, really interesting. I mean, like, it wouldn't be interesting for civilians because it's not James Bond. It's just a lot of paperwork.
I don't know what kind of mess Spacer's Choice made here, but it figures they'd leave it to someone else to clean up.
Okay, I'm gonna take my gun down though, because I don't need to, you know, I just don't need to be threatening people with guns. Well, look at the sky, huh? Ooh. Again, I'm just gonna note that I have. Oh. By the way, I'm hungry. Because, not me personally, but my character, because I'm addicted to food, apparently. Which is fine. Like, it's okay to be addicted to food. I'm going to just note that the whole reason why I allowed myself to take that disadvantage was because I never eat enough food anyway. And so I feel like this was a way to eat food. So we're going to eat these bananas. Boom. Yes. Can you bring... Of course. Yes, I can. I can absolutely bring up the game volume a little bit. Let me do that. Absolutely. Whoop. There you go. 100%. 100%. I think I'd have liked the structure of it. I do much better on a strict schedule. So yeah, so I really enjoyed my job. Does this seem like a bad situation to you all? Because it kind of does to me. Oop. Oop. There. Let's hack. Insert cap. Okay. Emergency evacuation notice successfully disabled. Great. Oh. That and pretty much knowing what the mission was and the problem solving. Yeah, like the jobs I found very interesting. I know a lot of people had really interesting jobs. Camaraderie, certainly. But there's another element to that I really enjoyed to being in the military that's not the same as camaraderie, although it might seem like it, but it isn't. It's that people in the military generally cared and did things, right? So like, An example would be I was in Korea and we were walking, we were all marching, my unit was like marching from point A to point B, as you do. And we had been in like the monsoon season, and this just looks really crappy, everybody. Somebody's had like a really wild party. And as we were walking, like, like the water the river had overflown its banks. And as we were walking, we saw a house floating down the river. And of course, this was not like an expensive house. It was not a house of somebody. It was like kind of like a shack, but it was like somebody's home. Had basically got up and was starting to float away. And then there was this little old Korean woman whose house it was, who was like freaking out, and she was crying, and like, there was her house, and nobody told us to do it, but we knew it was the right thing to do, so we all just ran out into the river, grabbed her house, because there were enough of us, like there's like, there were enough of us that we could, so we ran out there, we picked up her house, we carried it back to her foundation so that she didn't lose her house. One of the things I've always valued about a lot of people I know in the military is they don't tend to just be stuck in bystander mode, that if there's something that maybe isn't good going on, they will often go and do something to help, as opposed to just kind of stand by and not do anything to help. So I've always valued that. I've always valued the ways in which a lot of military people, like not everybody, right, will go and like do things for other people. And it is one of the problems of my life, I'm afraid, that I was sort of socialized in that sort of military style of giving, and like that you give, you serve, you give and you serve other people, and you give to other people, and that's what you do, because everybody else is going to do the same thing for you. Like you need something from somebody, they will help you out. Somebody needs something from you, you help them out. That's just kind of how it happens. That is not, however, how civilians tend to be. And so I still live in a model of giving to other people, but other people often just don't give back. And, it's kind of a bummer. What do you think I just did? Oh, hey, it's an elevator. Nice. Before I go on that elevator, I want to see what's over here, just because it could be interesting. Have I ever been involved in mutual aid? What does that mean? Could you explain that question? Like a mutual aid society? What does that mean? Give me more words. Explain more things to me, and then I can answer the question. Because at the moment, I do not think I can answer the question. What do you mean by mutual aid? What do you mean by that? Like, is that like an official thing that you're asking about? Give me more data. This is what I want to know. Give me more info. Also, why do they keep bringing my gun up? I don't want to. I feel like when I have my gun up, I look very threatening, and I try not to have my gun up unless I actually mean to shoot someone. We're gonna just be a bit, what's the word? Systematic, and we're gonna sort of try to see what we can see. Yeah, so that's I do miss that about the military. I miss the sort of selflessness, the willingness to help other people without expectation of anything in return. Well, the only expectation being that basically that at some point in time somebody's going to help you when you need it. And that was just a very nice way of living, and it's nice to be in a community of people who all sort of do that. And that is not, it's not how civilians operate. And that, that can get you into trouble. Well, trouble's a big word. Trouble is you don't get into trouble. It's just that people take from you and they don't give back, and that's just kind of what it is. But, oh, hey, look. Ladder. Nice, nice. Yeah, so I miss that. I miss like the selflessness of the military. I miss the ways in which people were always really willing to do stuff. Uh, like it was a regular thing that if I wanted to go and play Ultimate Frisbee after work, I could find 14 people to play Ultimate Frisbee with. People would be just like, "Oh yeah, work is done. Yeah, let's go play Ultimate Frisbee. Let's just go do that." So that was really nice. Um, what else did I like about the military? I was in good shape, so that was nice. Free food, free healthcare, so like free housing, free food, free healthcare. I enjoyed that very much about the military. Um, Equal pay for equal work. I enjoyed that in the military. That like if you had the rank, you got paid like you didn't have two people with the same rank and the same time in service getting paid differently for sketchy reasons. So that was great. I enjoyed that as well. Um, as an army brat, my cousins never understood why I never said no to helping family members do stuff. Yeah. Courier says, so when I say mutual aid, I usually mean a small, medium local organization of community members helping their own community. What looks like it in what looks like in practice depends on what that community needs. Food and clothes. Oh, you mean like volunteering? Oh yeah, I volunteer all the time. Like I look, I am a giver. If people need things, I will give it to them. I will volunteer. Um, uh, to give people things to help them in any way they need. So yes, I am, and what exactly what kind of volunteer work I do will look a little bit different, um, but absolutely have a history of volunteerism to help other people, because I feel like that's important. So like depending on like I'll work at a soup kitchen. I will. Um, various sorts of volunteer work. I certainly have done that. And like sometimes it's very specific trans or queer related stuff. Sometimes it's just like whatever the thing that would be most helpful and useful at that time and place. I am a fan of giving to other people, and I try to do so as much as I can. Um, Unfortunately, it's been detrimental in the long term, and I've learned to say uh, no. Oh, I got vol. Oh yeah, I don't say no. I just will just keep giving. I won't. And sometimes it is detrimental, because some people will take advantage. Some people will take advantage. But I would rather live in a world where we give than one where we don't. So I will give, even if that means that sometimes people will take advantage, because I I want to live. Ouch. I would prefer to live in a world where people give than one where they don't. And I feel like if I continue giving, maybe it will inspire other people also to do so. So, yeah, like, uh, I still don't really say no very often. It's not, yeah, I still don't. That's still where I'm at on that one. Um, Sounds like Denmark won the game. Is there not a mental difference between a mandatory military or the choice to do a job in the military? Uh, is there? We don't have the draft, so nobody's forced to go in the military. Like we have to sign up for selective service, but nobody's. We have an all volunteer military in the U.S. I actually think we should have service, but they got rid of service in Germany because they didn't want to spend the money on it, which makes me sad because I think it would have been a good. I think it's good. Um, because I normally find that people in those spaces are typically pretty selfless. Is it just that military doesn't attract egoists? Um, I would say that um, teamwork is important. Like it's a very like look, the military is a very socialist space. Uh, in many ways, right? Like everybody is fed, everybody is clothed, everybody's got health care, everybody has a place to live. Um, there is everybody relies on each other to not die, right? Like there's like a real sense of community uh, in like a very serious way that comes out of military life. Trooper, just in case you didn't notice, it looks like someone snuck in and dyed your beard while you're like, what? What? It was me. It was me. I got merely taken advantage of. Nearly every person I helped most of my life disappeared once my dad passed. Oh, including most of my family. Once his money disappeared, so did they. Oh, that happens to me all the time. I mean, Atomica, I am so sorry to hear that, but I would say... Oh, I have a thought, but I want to come back to the next comment. Courier says, being told I had to sign up for selective service as a trans woman when at the time trans people couldn't serve was fun. Yes, but of course... Yes, although we haven't had a draft since the 1970s, so I feel like chances are I did not sign up for selective service, and I transitioned after the age range where you have to. So then I was in trouble because of the dude who hadn't signed up, and then you get in trouble for that. But I was able to go and like get explain why that I actually was a veteran, so it was fine, and it was okay. I survived it. It was fine. I'm just think of my uncles. They did military in their younger years, and the only thing they took with them was getting drunk, being assholes, and some other unkind words. I actually think now the mandatory service was like 1 year in Germany, and I actually think oh, I could steal all this stuff, but I won't. Personally, this is my opinion, and I know that people have a different feelings about it. Vola says, good part of the draft is that every type of person of every social class gets to know each other, and everyone has a different way to solve various tasks, which helps later on when young people get to work or further education. Courier says, I'm too old now anyway, so it's not something I'm concerned about. It's just one of those shitty microaggressions. Yeah. Yes. So I personally think we should have 1 year of mandatory service like they used to have in Germany. They don't anymore. Which is a bummer, but they just don't want to spend the money on it. But I think we should. I think that once you get out of high school, everybody should do 1 year of service. Now, what that service is, why is the door open? I would do it like you would do it in Germany, because in Germany, you didn't have to go into the military for your 1 year of service. You could, my ex's brother did his 1 year of service at an old folks home. So he worked in an old folks home. People for me, what I would do is everyone, lottie-dottie, everybody would do 1 year of service right out of high school. And that 1 year of service could be military. It could be like the Conservation Corps. It could be AmeriCorps. It could be working at Habitat for Humanity, like all sorts of different volunteer organizations would also sign up. So like you could work at the National Park Service. You could work at a kindergarten or Habitat for Humanity or whatever. Or you could do the military if you wanted to, or you could do any number of things. So I would have if I were in charge of the world, everybody would do 1 year of mandatory service of some kind. They would be able to choose what kind of service it would be. They could also choose where their service was. If they wanted to stay in their hometown, they could. If they wanted to go somewhere else, go to Alaska, I don't know, go to some other part of the country, they could do that. And while they were in their military service, their service, whatever it was, they would get free healthcare, they would get food, they would get housing. Right? So all those basic needs would be taken care of. And of course, they'd also get paid, right? So they'd get paid money, they'd get housing, they'd get healthcare, they'd get food, and then they would do whatever their 1 year voluntary work was. Higgy's like, I think it should be a 3 year mandatory service. I think I would just do one, really. It could also tie into Climate Corps. Oh yeah, if we ever get that, right? Yeah, right. Absolutely, Climate Corps, right? In general, better systems for young adults to get experience and confidence in the adult world would be great. But that sounds especially like higher education for the U.S. So you're talking civil servants, or they could also be military, right? It would be what they did in Germany, wherein you had to do 1 year of service, but it could be military or it could be some other kind of volunteerism. This sounds like more like a service that you'd get charged for here. Yeah, no. See, in my plan, you wouldn't get charged for it. You would get all of these social benefits. Hey, Artie Snack. I am having a good day. I hope you are doing well. My special needs school had like 8 cities, and that is a lot, but we had some kids that needed a grown-up supervision 24/7 because he was 17 and developmentally his age was a half a year. Schmelzer said, I love my Zivildienst, and I agree. 1 year of some kind of service to society is definitely something that would benefit a lot of young people fresh out of school. Yeah, and like for me, one of the reasons why I think it would be a good idea, like I have a lot of reasons why I think this would be a good idea.
Is that what my thoughts sound like? Look, I've been standing near that alarm too long. You looking for supply, stranger? Let's stock up here. If you run low on bullets out in Gorgon's far reaches, there ain't no one around here liable to help you out.
Interesting.
Let me know if you're looking for something particular.
Cool. So, like, I have a lot of reasons why I think this would be a good idea. One, Americans tend to be very, very, civis, yeah. Americans tend to be very self-centered. Not all Americans, but a lot of Americans are sort of self-centered. And that's a broad, sweeping generalization. But I would just say, societally, like, not all Americans are the same. It also varies depending on class, race, et cetera, religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Providing a decent wage and benefits would go a long way for making it not really necessary. But I would have it be mandatory because there's a reason why I want it to be mandatory. Because rich people will just not do it. That's the thing, right? And I don't want it to be a thing where rich people just don't do this. That's actually going against the point, because the point for me is not so that we get people working in the Conservation Corps, that's the bonus, right? So that's the bonus. It's not the actual labor is not the point for me. It's actually the social, it's actually a larger situation. Schmelzer says, but it should be more equal. Yes, than how it was back in the day here. Every gender and military and non-military should be considered equal, not one. Yes, Schmelzer, I agree 100%. I would have it everybody and it would be all equal 100%. Right? Yes, 100%. That would be. I agree 100%, Schmelzer. Rich people would serve their community as caddies in the country. No, because the country club is not a charity, so that would not count. I guess I'm thinking how it would help poor kids than concerned about rich entitled brats. Right, but that's why I'm thinking about them both, right? Like I'm thinking about both of them together. So I think that, and again, not everybody, not all Americans, but America has a habit, like it's part of our mythology of like rugged individualism. And you can kind of see it in how our politics work out, that we have we have fewer social systems than Europe does. You look at the word socialism as if it's a bad word. People will say things like, I don't want national health care because I never get sick, right? There's a lot of very, very self-centered thinking in the US. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people. And I would want people to spend some time giving to people other than themselves, right? That would be part of one of the goals of this, everybody spends 1 year giving to somebody other than themselves. I think that would be socially good for us as a country to have that. But also, when you get free healthcare, food and housing, there are people who are poor who could really use that, who would like to volunteer but can't. There are people who are in really remote places, or for whatever reason they can't travel, and this would give them a space to travel outside of where they're from. Like maybe you're in like the inner city in Detroit and you've never left Detroit, or you're like in the hollers in the Appalachian, you've never left the hollers, and you want to go to a different part of the country and experience different people. This would be an opportunity for that as well. And I think that once people get, like, one of the reasons why I am in favor of like healthcare for everybody is because I was in the military and I had healthcare, and that was great. Like I could go to the dentist if I needed to go to the dentist, and many Americans cannot go to the dentist because dental care is not part of our healthcare for the most part, our health insurance. Like you have to get separate health insurance for your dental care and eye care, and many people can't, right? So I feel like if people actually get to experience what it's like to have a social safety net, they might actually appreciate it a bit more, and we might be more likely to have it. So that seems like a positive thing as well. And this is why I shall intern in the Trooper Department's works. Thank you, Courier. I suppose no, I believe they stopped having Pflicht altogether. I believe I spunny. Schmelzer. However, there's some problematic context in how a lot of the places that employed cities would just treat them as free labor and replace what should really have been a full-time job with. Yeah, no, that would be a problem, and so you'd have to be really careful about what kinds of things could count, and to make sure it's like an internship, like an educational experience. Curious says, not providing people with healthcare is literally more expensive than providing with healthcare. Yeah. And even if you buy the dental insurance, you can't afford the copay, and like it's often capped because like dental insurance is not really insurance; it's like a discount program, and it will only pay for a certain amount. So like I had to get a tooth replaced, but I could only get one thing done that year. I have a second tooth, I have a hole, I have a missing tooth right up here, and I have to. When I get back to Massachusetts, I should be able to get that replaced now because it's been a year. But like I still had to pay a lot of money to get my tooth replaced. Yeah, it's not good. Schmel says, as far as I know, it's still a thing, and there's now also Bundesfreiwilligdienst. My brother did the Freiwilliges Ökologisches Jahr. This is like a voluntary service. Higgilan says, I only say 3 years civil service because A, that is just more people can do for others, and B, I think adding in mandatory classes in the service for what it's like to live life. Like how to manage personal finances, how our nation's politics works, other things. Yeah, I see that, but I think it's really tricky. Like I see what you're saying. I have to think about that. I've not decided. Like I'm gonna take that thought. It just seems to me that 3 years is a long time, and I don't know if that would be particularly useful. 3 years for the people doing it, and it might make them more resentful. But like 1 year, everybody can give 1 year, and then they have some time to think about, if they really want to go to college or do something different. Like I think it could get them that up. But the places that I know have like 3 years service mandatory, those people are like usually not particularly happy about it. Yeah. So I have to think about it. Like maybe 2. I have to think about it. 1.5 years. But like some kind of classes might be interesting. Yeah. I have to think about this. Yes, I like the idea of some kinds of classes about like personal finances, perhaps things like that. But 3 years feels like a lot, so I'm just like, got to work that out in my mind. Yeah. Vola said, finally solved that issue by surprise visits and stuff. If an employer used young people as free labor, the place wasn't allowed to have other civilian service members after that. Yeah, right. I feel like that's the way you do it. You have to have oversight. Courier says, a lot of those classes should happen in high school, though, which brings back to funding education properly in this country as always. It's tricky because I'm actually not quite certain those classes should happen in high school because there is already a sense that what high school is babysitting and not education, right? And the idea that, oh, well, we're going to teach you how to balance a checkbook. We're going to teach you these sorts of things because that's really all that high school is there for is sort of problematic, especially because when people wouldn't say that, they tend to say things like, yeah, you don't need things like literature and algebra. All you need to do is like learn how to balance your checkbook, and that's what you need. And like, I feel a little uncomfortable with that, like with that sort of notion. Yeah, so like and also we do have nutrition in high school, and we do have economics, and so you do get some of that. Like we had economics class, we had to learn some of that, and it's also a little bit tricky because I don't know how many 17-year-olds really want to learn about Roth IRAs and retirement. I don't know how much they're going to be ready for that in that moment. I think a lot of times about like when you teach somebody something, if they're not in the space yet where it is practical or useful for them, they are not going to remember it. And so also the timing of when these classes are taught become important as well. So like, I don't have there are things that people need to learn that if you're rich, your rich parents will teach you. If you're poor, your poor parents will not teach you. So there are things that need to be taught, especially things about like how credit ratings work. And so the question becomes, what's the best way to do that? Do you know what I mean? What is the best way to do that? And there's got to be a really good way to make it effective so it works, so that people retain that information and are ready to hear it. I don't know yet. I don't know what it is. I agree that it needs to be done. I don't yet know. I haven't yet solved that conundrum yet, though. Ice Bunny says, and also putting Kinderpflegen jobs they are, as per definition, are not trained for, and that are jobs for trained educators. Yes. Kinderpflege are basically nannies who can work with kids 0 to 6 years, and in a school where the students are 6 to 18, they should not be TAs there. Yes. Higgy, I was like, 2, I could agree with you. Yeah, and also, Higgy, I think one of the things also is that the program that I'm thinking about is expensive, which I'm fine with. Like, I feel like we spend a lot of money in the US, and
you mean
we
you
could
came
spend
out to
money
this asteroid without
on this.
knowing nothing about it?
Yep.
Me too. Heard it was wild here and couldn't resist. Trouble is, if you wander off to somewhere you oughtn't be, like way out in Gorgon's farthest reaches, odds are slimmer of your bits finding their way to my pockets. If you want my advice, stick close to the Sprat Shack, unless you fancy having your limbs torn off and eaten.
Wow. Do you learn cooking? We have, yeah, when I was in, so what I would say, Ice Bunny, is that it's important to remember that the United States, what's the word? We're decentralized as a country. Like we are a federal government, right? So our states have a lot of power. And when it comes to education, we do not have national federal standards. We have state, and really, I think we have like city, like our education standards are basically kind of city based, like in each. Hey, how we roll, Evan, how we roll, Evan, right? Yes, yes. It's like based on individual school districts. Also, it could do more to prevent crime. Yes, it would, and also yes. More adult education would be really good. Demolition Man's job program would be perfect. Just download a skill or trade. Oh, nice. Thanks. I'm gonna give my best unimpressed look.
You okay? Does your stomach hurt or something? Look, I ain't stopping you from wandering elsewhere. But if you do, be sure you watch out for the marauders.
Oh, yeah.
That's the #1 thing.
Yeah, sure.
And the Mance, I guess.
Okay.
You watch out for marauders, Mance, and Charles from accounting, and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah, so Ice Bunny, we don't have a class-based tiered education system like they do in Germany. We don't have, we have our own issues, but we do not have Hauptschule, Realschule, Gymnasium with 3 different education systems, depending on what test you take when you're 12 years old. We have one school system, technically. And so it's, Owen. Oh, thank you, because I was like, GH. Oh, sorry, it's BH, it's the V. Sorry. Owen. 10, right? So like we just don't have that system. So we don't have, we have other things. Like I'm not saying that our system is perfect, but it is not that system. So we just have high school. That's what we have. Now, some high schools are richer than other high schools and have better supplies and facilities, but we don't have 3 different schools that you're slotted into when you're 10. And but what's going to happen in your school is going to depend a little bit more on your school district. So I can tell you, yeah, in high school you do choose classes. So I can tell you how it was. I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different school districts, but they were all in California, and California has like some overall norms. Like a lot of states will have state norms.
Meanest marauder on Gorgon.
Oh.
And also anywhere else.
Oh.
That man is crazier than a bag of canids and twice as likely to bite. He will bust your head open like an overripe mock apple if he so much as sees you. I ain't joking. He'll snap you in half like stale bread noodles.
Okay. Well, thanks for the warning.
No, you don't get it.
What?
Charles from accounting is like...
What?
Imagine if you took 3 of the most howling mad marauders you could
Yeah.
find and mashed them together.
Okay.
That's Charles.
Okay. So you mean he's got the strength of 3 men?
That and a rocket launcher.
So go back to the part about the rocket launcher.
Did I not mention that? Right. Sorry. He's got a rocket launcher.
Right. So PH is a big fan of sorting our kids into different levels of schools. I actually think it is the worst thing. I hate it. I hate it very, very much. It is the, like, I loved Germany, but that is the one thing that I hated. I hated it a lot. And I was horrified by it. Like, it is a thing that does not work for me at all. And when I lived in Germany, I saw the effects of that system in practice in ways that I thought were pretty awful. Bad, like just bad. I know that people are like, I know that in Germany it's like normalized and people like it. But I did not like it. I did not like it at all. And I did not like the effects of it. I did not like the radical difference in the things that people were taught and how people talked about it. It was, it was not, yeah. Now, I know lots of people, love this. Like, a lot of my rich friends loved this system, actually. A lot of my friends who were on the top of the system thought it was really great. They thought it was really good. Because, like, most of my friends when I lived in Germany went to gymnasium. They were all Gymnasianten, and they were, like, lawyers, and they were a bit more... and they also were not immigrants. And they thought the system was really good because they said many things. But that was not... Yeah. Like, I mean... I remember I asked my friends who went to gymnasium, like, well, do people in Realschule like learn algebra? And their response was like, no, you don't want people who are working in factories to think too much because it'll just make them unhappy. They'll just be much happier if they don't have critical thinking skills, if they're gonna be working in a factory. And I was like, wow, okay, great. That sounds super sketchy. But also I remember I was talking to a woman in a bar. I met a woman in the bar, we were chatting. I was in the bar with my friends who were all law students, and then I went to get something, and I met this woman, we were chatting, and she was from a small town, Eichach, and she was a baker, and that was pretty cool. And I was asking her, like, what's it like being a baker? She was telling me about it, it was cool. I went back to my friends, like, hey, I met this woman over there, she's really cool, she's a baker, she's an Eichach. And they're like, oh, she's a baker? That means she probably just went to Hauptschule, which means she's not smart. And, like, they're saying to me there's, like, really no point in talking to her because she went to Hauptschule, so therefore she's just not really smart and worth my time to talk to. And I found that distressing. Also, the secretary for the language school that I taught at, but it is the schooling. Well, first off, the lack of algebra is the schooling system. The fact that people are sorted that young is the schooling system. And then, like, I was talking to a friend of mine, this woman I knew, who's amazing. She was the secretary for the language school that I taught at, and she was a secretary. She's one of the smartest people I know, really smart, really interesting. And I said, hey, so you're a secretary, which means you went to a Realschule, because you can tell people's education that way based on how they got sorted by their job. And she's like, yeah. I was like, why didn't you go to gymnasium? Because you're, like, one of the smartest people I know, and you're really brilliant, and you're really interested in all these things. She said, oh, well, I'm a woman, and I grew up in a small farmer's town, and my parents were like, there's no way you're going to gymnasium. Why would you go to gymnasium? You're just going to get married anyway. And so they wouldn't let her go. And she was in a small town, and so none of the people that were part of her peers group went to gymnasium. All of her friends went to Hauptschule or Realschule, and so she didn't. And because she went to Realschule, she was locked out of being able to progress into the kind of jobs that she was good at, that she would be good at. I also taught English a lot at business. I taught a lot of business English in companies, and I got to see the ways in which the school system disadvantaged women, especially, also immigrants, especially. There was this company that had a problem finding entry-level managers. Like, they would get entry-level managers, but they were never very good. But their entire secretarial staff would have been perfect for those jobs, but they went to Realschule, so they could never get those jobs. They can be promoted upwards. Some of them weren't secondary, some of them were like other sort of like, you know, Realschule jobs. But basically, sorting the school that way basically just fixes class difference. And it was it was a problem, right? Because if you were an immigrant and maybe your German was not the best when you were 10 years old, then you got slotted into Hauptschule, and employment's not great for people with Hauptschule degrees at this moment. And there you are, right? If you come from very rural spaces, poor spaces, immigrant spaces, if you're a woman, there are so many ways in which people get placed in schools sorted when they're 10. And that is, you know, I just find that really sort of problematic. Yeah. Wizard says, whenever there's a political initiative to get rid of the tiered system in Germany, it is torpedoed by wealthy people. The states in Germany that have more Gesamtschulen, which are supposed to combine the three tiers under one roof, are the ones traditionally dominated by the SPD. Yep. The formerly big Social Democratic Party. That will tell you something about who the system works for. Yeah. And I was in Bavaria, which did not have Gesamtschulen, and they were like more conservative, and their like system was even more, was like more tiered, a little bit more rough. And they resisted. I don't know. I hope that they have Gesamtschulen now, but they resisted Gesamtschulen. They didn't want them. They did not want that happening at all. And it was very disappointing to me, right? And there was a lot of, and I talked to my friends who had money, and they're like, well, you know, if you wouldn't have the Hauptschule degree, you could later go back and get your Gymnasium degree. And I was like, how would that happen? They're like, oh, well, you know, you just go back to school. And I was like, yeah, but if you go to the Hauptschule, you're probably going to be starting working when you're 16. And if you're working class, you're probably going to get married really young. You're going to start having bills, and it's going to not be economically feasible for you to just quit and go and do Gymnasium again, right? Like, there are ways in which, like, there's no discussion of the way in which class and poverty reduce your options. And yeah. I went through it, Pete, for 9 years, and Germany has no upward social mobility in the school system. Yeah. I had classmates from Vietnam, smart and sweet people. They only had the Hauptschule because they had to learn German. Yeah. And I also think about, Schmelzer says, well, people definitely learn algebra in Realschule. Yes. No, it was Hauptschule. They said you did not learn algebra in Hauptschule, because it's the Hauptschule people are going to learn will be the factory workers. Also, you theoretically can just move up to the next level of school after graduating, but I agree the German school system is very unfair, and there are a lot of studies that show that. Sounds like it's designed to see the poor in their place and not challenge anyone in the upper richer standings. And in the Hauptschule, no algebra, right? But Realschule you would learn out because, right, they've got this sort of idea about who should learn those things. And I also think about myself, right? If I had lived, but courier, you don't need it if you're going to work into a factory, as my friends told me. It'll just make you unhappy. And if I had lived in Germany, right? If I had lived in Germany, I would not be a professor today. Like, and that's just the basic fact, right? It blows my mind that the US and the UK have to apply to colleges and interview. It is such an unfair system. Ireland is 100% merit-based. The system has its issues, but college places are based on results. Well, that's tricky. Again, how we roll, if that were the case, first off, it depends. Like, some schools are like that. It depends on the school, because we have more than one. We have different kinds of universities. We have universities that are public, that are private. You don't actually have to interview. You have to apply to colleges, but you don't have to interview for all of them. And depending on the kind of school, if you, like, most of our public schools, if you get the grades, you'll get in, and you meet the requirements, you'll get in, and that's what you need. Yeah. So what I would say is, like, if I grew up in Germany, I would not be a professor. I would not. And if I were in the UK, or if I were in Ireland, I also would not have gone to university. Like, so, like, I'm just going to say that if I were in Ireland, I would not have gone to university at all, because I would not have qualified, because it's only based on your scores, your qualifications. And if I had grown up in Germany, I also would never have gone to college. Like, the systems there make it so that I would have never been able to excel. Like that's and like that's a thing that I know. Like I know that if I had been in both those places, that I would not be where I am today. And in the UK, you don't have to interview for every university. No, and you don't have to for a lot of the U.S. schools either. And also, the thing is, merit is a question. What does it mean to have merit? Is how are we judging merit is a question. American Online don't fund schools. I'm from Ireland, but go off. Yeah. No, so like, yeah, the leading cert is not a good judge of intelligence. How did he get a rocket launcher?
Couldn't say. He kills anyone who gets close enough to ask. Look, long story short, you do not fuck with Chuck. Best to avoid the Marauder camp entirely. That's my 2 bits on the matter.
So, and I'll get back to high school. So we have like a lot of the public universities, you don't interview, you just fill out the application form, which is like your grades, your test scores. For really big schools, that's probably it. You probably don't even, you might get like a letter of recommendation from your teachers, maybe, depends. Smaller schools and private schools will actually look at more things. They will look at, and it also depends, like, also our university system is so fundamentally different than European university school systems because our university school systems are not just about classrooms, right? They're also about being on the student newspaper, being student activists, being in sports teams, being in theater, being in music, being in dance, being like our universities are like, I know in the UK, when you apply to university, you apply to a specific major, right? And we don't, like, you go in and then you sort of discover your major as you, like, our universities are much broader. So a university needs not just people with like great grades, but they also need people who will be good student activists, who will be good student leaders, who will be good in the sports team, who will be good in the arts thing, and who will be good for like, so like what makes you good? There are multiple different things that can make you good. So a school tends to want, also, especially private schools, so usually want more racial and class diversity. It's important for them to like not be an only white school. So like it's not just the grades that become the criteria of ranking. It's like a bunch of things altogether. Yeah, merit seems like it is something that would be easy to manipulate. Yeah. UCD just took me off my leaving certificate. Results. There was a very little advice on whether it was a good for the. Oh yeah. At 17, I choose to be a civil engineering degree. After 2 years, I knew I hated it and I would never work in the field. There's no try before you buy. Yeah. That's right. And no, right. So I graduated high school. Let me see. Charles from accounting.
Yeah?
Why is he called that?
His name is Charles and he used to work in accounting?
That's fair. Makes sense to me.
Anything else you needed?
I take it the evacuation alarm wasn't urgent?
Huh? Oh, you don't gotta worry about that. Something to do with that scrap project Gorgon from years back.
Oh.
Thanks for turning it off, by the way.
Oh.
I'd have lost my mind if the damn thing had gone on much longer.
Oh, okay, so, I graduated high school. Going to college later in life is good. It's good. So I graduated high school with a 2.8 GPA. And for those of you who do not use the American system, our top score is a 4. 4.0, that's A's. Like and then like a B is like a 3, a C is a 2, a D is a 1, and an F is a 0. And so I had like a C+ average coming out of high school, which is bad. It passed, like it's a passing, like I passed, but that's not going to get you into college. Like that is a bad GPA. That'll get you into like community college. Like I could go to community college with a 2 point, because community college will just take everybody, like anyone can go to community college. but I had a bad GPA. It was bad. In England, UK, for most universities, you apply for a particular subject degree. Yep. And provide your grades in a personal statement, which is where you get the details of your experience on educational merits. Yeah. And my understanding in the UK is that if you decide to change your mind, you don't want to do that, you have to reapply to college. Whereas with us, our undergraduate degrees, you apply to the college that you want to go to, then you get into that college, and then you do not declare your major. You have to declare your major by the end of your second year, but you don't have to declare it beforehand, so you can change your mind. I wish I'd gone later. I guess I don't regret it, but I wish I had the opportunity to do it now. Oh, yeah. PHS, why was my GPA bad? Many reasons. Spencer says, the major minor thing is definitely something that would be great for German universities. Shutters think of all the engineers with absolutely zero understanding of anything related to social studies. Yes. I will. How we roll asks, how does SATs fit into this system? I'll tell that as well. But also we have requirements. We have, because we are, most of our schools are liberal arts colleges. That's the system we're using. You do not, like, if you want to major in, you don't even have to have a minor. We have distribution requirements. Most universities have distribution requirements. So even if you don't minor, because you don't have to minor if you don't want to, you can, but you don't have to. But even if you don't minor, when you go, like at my school, most of the schools I've been to are taught at, you have to take two classes in a hard science, 2 classes in a social science, 2 classes in a humanities, and 2 classes in an arts as part of your 4 years. You usually have to take something that will fulfill the writing requirement. You usually have to take, depending on the school, there might be a diversity requirement. There might be other requirements. So like you cannot go, basically our BA is not a master's. Right? You don't, when you go in, you don't just study only exclusively the subject that you're interested in. Even if you only major in that, you have to take other classes outside of your major. You just have to. You have to experience other things. That's it. Right? So you usually have at least 1 year of classes, 1 year's worth of classes at least, that are going to be broadly broad is what I would say. In Denmark, they pick on students, often girls, who work hard and get good grades, and even the therapists wanted to exercise my perfectionism because I'm aware that I have limits due to my dyslexia. To level that out, I need to do the rest close to perfect, and I have a B average in my high school. The distribution requirements would have driven you crazy, but oh, thank you. I will see you later. The thing is, distribution requirements are actually really important. And I think it's good that you have them. Because the thing is, if you want to only study the subject that you want to study, get a master's or a PhD. Because in that level, you don't have to know anything about anything other than the one thing you're looking at. But our colleges our undergraduate colleges are doing something a little bit broader. They want to make you a more well-rounded human being. And also, since you don't declare your major right away, they want you to get classes outside of what you think your major might be. And so many people they're doing their distribution credits, and then they're like, oh wait, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to do this other thing. Or I don't want to major in English. I want to be a computer science major, right? Like, those distribution requirements have I mean, they're good. They're good. I love my dad. He never took my schooling seriously, and it was like being dropped into the deep end of a pool where he just immediately walked away. Oh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry, Tamaka. Courier says, even though I did a STEM degree, so I had most of my classes everyone would have wanted to ditch. Calc. Mm-hmm. Do you not have to be a BA to get into... Yes, you do. You do. No, you can change your degree while at university. Oh, that's good. You don't have to reapply. Because I had friends who did that, who were in the UK and England in the 90s, and they had to reapply. If there's space available, you can transfer. Oh, that's good. That is good. Why didn't someone just shut it off?
We tried. Couldn't persuade the control terminal to listen. No one round here is particularly mechanically inclined, and no one was going to shut it down by force. That's for sure. I know, because even von Hoffman couldn't bash it in. And I seen that tough son of a gun throw a man clean across the Sprat Shack one time like he were a toss ball.
So you have to suffer through math class. It depends on the school you're in, how they work out their distribution requirements. So, oh, Atomica! Atomica! Thank you for those bits. Since you've given me bits, that means I'm going to sing We're in the Money, as sung by Ginger Rogers in the film Gold Diggers of 1933, which means I'm going to sing them in Pig Latin. Irway and hey, the anime. Irway and hey, the anime. Iwayat gileat wayat wayat wayexti utit gileong wayo. Irway and hey, the anime. Ide I skays are ani say. Old man the ideation pray uyare through you a stay on way on rail. Iwe ever ni eat red leons lay of wayat breons lay ute day. And when we see the end, or we'll clap the eye in the eye. We're in the money. We're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. Thank you for those bits, Atomica. Let me see. What can you tell me about Project Gorgon?
Only that Spacer's Choice shut it down in a big hurry.
So,
From what I heard,
yes,
some of their folks got left behind even. Don't seem like the project ended well.
What you have for sale?
Found a pickaxe in the mine like none I've ever seen before. Could be awful useful if you're the violent type.
Yes. Rissa says, I avoided the math requirement by taking chemistry, which in hindsight was a dumb decision, but at least I pulled a C in chem. Right, so it depends on your school. I'm going to just buy this. It depends on your school, how they do their distribution requirements. So where I went to undergraduate, we had 4 areas. Math and science, social science, humanities, and arts were the 4. So I could take a science or a math, and computer science counted. So I took computer science classes for my math computer science requirements. And in most schools, computer science does count for the math requirement. Some schools, like my school that I teach at right now, math and hard science are separate. So they have like 5 areas rather than 4. I think it should be 4, not 5. That's my opinion. I think 4 is a better number than 5. So a lot of people can just like take computer programming if they don't want to take math, or they can take chemistry. Like usually there's like flexibility because you get to choose which courses. And also some of the, there's some classes that will count for that math requirement that might be in your major. Like, so for example, there are some stats classes like psychology statistics that would count for the math requirement, but it's not like calculus. So there's some depending on your major, there's some requirements that would count. Hello, Chromatic. But also, I just have to say that like there are so many people who are like, oh, whatever it is, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do distribution. And it's not always like I don't want to do math. Sometimes it's I don't want to do math. But I also get people who will do things like, oh, I'm an English major. You get the people who are like, I'm an English major, I don't want to do math. Of course, you always have those people. But you also have the people who say things like, let's repair. We'll accept that. But then we also have people who are like STEM people who are like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. I don't need to know how to read or write. I don't want to take an English class. Like we would get all, you get STEM people who don't think they need to learn how to write or read. You get like English people who don't think they know how to balance their checkbook or do math in any kind of way. And like, we decided we don't think we're not into it. Right? That's it. Lucky you guys failed college algebra 3 times. We had to move to New before Mississippi State used as a dropout course. Although I wasn't the target audience for distribution requirements anyway. A lot of my friends were art students. I did slam poetry, etc. Yeah. I'm a science major. Why don't English? I mean, it happens all the time, right? Which explains why a lot of medical papers I have had the... Yes, after 4 years of almost solely writing numbers, my English, you should see my handwriting. Like a drunk 12-year-old. Yeah, and like the thing is, I was like super, super arty, right? Super arty. But you know what was really great for me? Taking computer science classes. That was really good. I'm really glad I did. And I took some archaeology classes. Like it was a good thing for me. And it was only like, didn't take up all my degree. It was fine. But to go way back, before we even get to college, high school, what are the SATs? How does high school work? So I can tell you how it worked in California, and we have some folks who are not from California who can probably tell us what their specific requirements were. But our high school was 4 years. After my mandatory oral math exam, math in high school, and I shook hands and passed away. We had, let's see what we have here. Let's go this way? Oh. Well, this is a bit of a question. There seem to be a lot of... Okay, this seems to be over here, like a much bigger area. So let's go up this way first, because it seems like a smaller area. All right, so 4 years high school. Everybody has to go to high school, 4 years. And what you have to do in those 4 years depends on your, on your state, and also to some extent to your city, like your school district, citywide school district. But I can tell you what we had for the most part. We had to take 4 years of English. So you had to take 4 years of English. That was mandatory. You had to take... and I will note that the requirements that we had were also the requirements that you needed to get into the state California state universities. So if you graduated from high school, you will have qualified to go to one of the state universities, like a basic one at least. So that's where our requirements are about getting into our state college as a minimum. So you had to take 4 years of English. Most schools did not have a choice. It was just like 4 years of English, although some schools, you could choose different kinds of English classes. So 4 years of English, you had to take 3 years of math, but you could take 4, but you had to take 3. But what those 3 math classes were was up to you. I took pre-algebra, algebra, and geometry. I should have taken trigonometry, but I didn't. But you could take algebra, geometry, trigonometry. You could go up to calculus if you wanted to. So like, there's usually like a number of different, there's usually like 5 or so different levels of math, and you had to take 3 of them. You could take 4. So it's 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of history, world history, U.S. history, and the third year was like economics and government was our third year. And that was, so that's 3 years of history, 3 years of math, 4 years of English, 2 years of a language minimum. You get to choose the language of what the options were. We had, like, all the schools I went to had French, Spanish, and German. I took 3, like, they recommend you taking more than 2, but you have to take 2. So 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of history, 2 years of a language, 2 years of science. I took biology and physics. I didn't take chemistry, I took biology and physics. And usually there's like a couple of different science. Did I take 3 years of science? No, I took 2. There are a couple different options. There's usually biology, chemistry, physics, maybe something else. You can take more if you want. So 2 years of science, 2 years of language, 3 years of history, 3 years of 4 years of English. Then you had to take 2 years of physical education. So we had 2 years of PE that we had to take. We had to take, what else did we have to take? Now all of that was pretty standard among all the schools that I went to. After that, some of them had specific requirements, some of them didn't. We had to take, in my last high school, we had to take a domestic art, a fine art, and a technical art. So that's 3 semesters. So I took, for my domestic art, I took sewing, but usually you'd have sewing and cooking, and you could take one or the other. For my technical arts, I took typing, but some people took like mechanical drawing or like wood shop or metal shop, mechanics. And then you'd take a fine art, and I took acting. That's what I took. But they also had like photography and choir, which I also took. And one of my high schools had a swimming requirement. You had to pass a swim test. That was just only one of my high schools had a swim test, though. None of the other ones did. And some of them didn't specify that you had to take, a technical art and you just had to take one. But that was, that was basically what my requirements were. But you often got to choose within, like in high school, you often got to choose within some limited spaces. The moon sign is hilarious. I cannot tell you why I had to explain math. It should have been enough to the math paper. It didn't help me that my teacher said she was from Germany when he picked me up in the prep room. I was the biggest excuse for myself, and I started to take back flower rescue emojis. Hey, Petra! How are you? It's so good to see you. How are you doing? Petra is like really cool and awesome, and I like Petra. And also, I had a good friend of mine that when I lived in... Oh, did I tell you there's a woman I had this massive crush on in Germany? Her name was Petra, and she had like the cool haircut and like the cool jacket. Like she had like little spiky hair, and she was like super cool. She was one of the Petras that I knew. But yeah, she was like, and she had like, and like her jacket had like shoulder pads, She was very cool. That's all. You were also very cool, by the way. I did technical drawing and CAD. Oh, that was cool. Yeah. And at 10 in the evening, I remembered that I should have said what I calculated the line. Doing quite well. And yes, you mentioned... Oh my gosh. But did I mention that she had spiky hair? Because I feel like I must not have. Because that's like a thing that I should have mentioned. Did she play music or RPGs? No. But she was just like one of the cool folks. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Starship Antics? Yes. Trevor just turned into a Scott Pilgrim describing his German Petra. Big, spiky shoulder pad ladies agree. Yeah, she was, she was more new wave, right? She was more new wave than she was punk. But, like, she had, like, it was like, because this was, like, 92, so she had kind of, like, a new wavy kind of a vibe going on, and it was, she was cool. Gosh, Germany was so fun. Let's see, main menu, welcome user Dtran. Notice electricity rationing is in effect. By accessing this terminal, you consent to paying 1 bit per every option selected. Okay. Yes, Tachyon! Tachyon Squadron! So excited. Let's look at the... Oh, okay. Dominic Tran owes 9,508 bits. Should I pay his bill? I will. I just paid his bill. Boom. Why did I do it? I don't know, but I did. Let's see. Let's look at outgoing shipments. We'll check this out. I should have said Starfighter. Yes. It can easily be confused with just being German for me. That's why Germany was awesome. Hey, Toyboat Sailor, how are you? Chromatic says, I have something to confess, and this group is a safe place to do it. I am starting to like New Wave. No, New Wave is amazing. I love New Wave. Hey, Deck Dice. I love New Wave. Also, I'm going to just note that in the 70s, there wasn't a difference between New Wave and punk. They were not considered different things. They were all hanging out in the CBGBs together. They were all playing together. Like Blondie and the Ramones and the B-52s. Like they were all like, there wasn't a distinction made in the same way that would happen later when they're like, if you're a woman, you're new wave. And if you're a man, you're punk. If you have synthesizers, then you're new wave. If you don't, you're punk. Like those distinctions started happening in the late 70s, but they were not happening in the beginning. And it was sketchy. Peter says, I love the game so much. I love playing Haley Predator, interacting with the other PCs so much. Right. And I actually also, I don't know how you feel about it, but I actually really like the combat mechanics, like for the Starfighter mechanics in Tachyon Squadron. I love, like, you're like, oh no, my friends are lower on that initiative thing and they're gonna be attacked, and what can I do to help them out? And like, I love the teamwork tactics in Tachyon Squadron's fighter pilot sections. Like there's some kind of excitement there, and it's a little dangerous, and it feels very exciting. I was thinking to starting. Oh, German fashion, unfashionist is the new. No, Germans are fashionable. Totally, totally fashionable. Totally fashionable. Shipment. What do we have here? So we have ship named Perseus. Okay, avoid going to Port of Load. Okay, Gorgon to Edgewater. 2,000 cartons containing redacted. 3 discharge staff, 5 reassigned staff. Alert, manifest content exceeds the recommended maximum weight of this vessel. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. What is this one? This is going to Stellar Bay. 100 cartons containing prototype redacted. 2 tons raw ore of redacted. 15 reassigned staff. Alert. Manifest contains contents exceed the recommended. This is interesting. Let's I wonder what that's. Let's see what's going on with our incoming shipments. There's a bit of a mystery here. Yes, I agree. I've never played a game with this type of mechanics, but we have a fantastic group, and we immediately settle into helping each other, creating advantage. Yeah. And I really like, because what's interesting to me is that it's got enough crunch to it so that like you can kind of visualize like, oh, okay, like everybody gets to do something different. There's the stakes are there. There are things to do. If we're gonna have like combat, I want there to be things to do. Do you know what I mean? Other than I hit. I find that less exciting. And I love you're like, oh no, maybe I need to like bump myself back up and I actually really love that the initiative order is also who you can attack. Like, I think that's really neat. So then all of a sudden people can be like, oh, I'm going to get on their tail. Oh no, I'm going to try to shake them off my tail. Oh no, I'm going to push down the enemy so that they can't attack my friend. Like, I'm going to make an advantage. I really like the kind of neat dynamic that is both like tactical, but also story-based. I quite like it. And you all have been doing, I've been watching the VODs and you all have been doing such a good time. I've been enjoying it. So shipment arriving into Gorgon, 350 cartons containing 100 units each of sterile injection ampules. 30 high-pressure steel cylinders containing oxygen, 25 volunteers. I'm feeling bad about this, right? I feel like all those people they were shipping out were probably injected with something sketchy, and we don't know what it is, and it's bad. So 3 corporate security squads containing 3 fire teams each, 500 rounds of light ammunition, 2,000 rounds of heavy ammunition, 1 flat containing 10 units of Moonman stand. That looks bad, everyone. That does not look good. It looks like bad things were happening in this place, is what I'm saying. Petra says, absolutely. And the mechanics allow you to express your PC's character, their flying style. So yes. And for me, that is like what is the sweet spot for me for an RPG. I know I'm going to like an RPG when the RPG allows me to express my character's personality through the mechanics, including combat, right? Like if my character is intellectual and methodical, I would like to be able to express that in combat as well as outside of combat. If my character is brash and takes risks, I would like to be able to express that in combat mechanically as well as outside of combat. Like I would like the mechanics to support the personality of my character, because there are people who are like, you know, you can RP in combat. And I was like, yes, you can, but the combat has to be able to support that. If the combat does not give you space to RP your character, then it's really hard to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I'm always happiest with a system wherein I could play 2 different people who are both fighters, let's say, but they have different personalities, and then I can play them differently and it will matter in some kind of a way. And that is something that I appreciate. Oh, How We Roll. Yes. You should check it out. At Tachyon Squadron, it uses Fate. It's good. Petra says, P.S. We still have to find a date to meet with Diana and talk about BSG. Yes, we do. Because I want to talk about BSG hardcore. Yes. Jer says, you might enjoy some exalted combat. It's crunchy as hell, but lets you express your character through that crunch. Oh. That's what I'm truly trying to get in mech game. Yeah, I want it personalized. I think it works because, yes, space. Exactly. The moves are fairly vague, but yet but yet you can still express who you are. I started to rewatch BSG, and some things have not aged well. I'm really interested I would have to rewatch it. But I have a question about aging well. It's just a thought. Some things don't age well because they were bad. May I preach the word of our Lord and Savior Mekton? Some things don't age well because we don't understand them anymore, right? Like I was thinking about, I was talking to Prax about this, about queer baiting. People looking at older media and be like, oh, that older media is terrible because it's queer baiting. And I was like, it was not queer baiting though. That was like, Xena, Warrior Princess, was not queer baiting. They were being as out as they could be at the time in a way that was very thrilling and exciting for queer people. Because like, oh my gosh, Xena and Gabrielle are totally in a relationship. That's so amazing, right? They didn't say we're in a relationship because actually you couldn't say it back then. But that's not queer baiting. So sometimes I feel like people look at things in the past and they don't understand them. Like they don't understand what they were doing. And so they read them as bad when actually they might not have been. They actually might have been liberatory or powerful or positive in a different context, right? And I feel like sometimes people don't get that, and that makes me a little bit sad. I think BSG was great in 2003 because it was diverse for the time. Now we're coming to these shows with different expectations. I definitely recognize that. Yeah, and I think also that becomes, and the thing is, it had right, like I'm thinking about like BSG had more than just black and white, right? Like it had Asian characters, it had a bunch of racial representation we didn't normally see. It had a gay character, at least one, right? Well, at least one bi character, some gender diversity. I have to look at it again. Now, somebody might say, yeah, but where's the non-binary character? It's like, well, but non-binary people, that identity did not exist at the time. There were other identities that existed, like genderqueer, but like, you cannot expect the same identities that exist now that did not exist then to be represented then. And then sometimes you might have to deal with the fact that there are identities that existed then that don't exist now that will be represented, and that might make you uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Jared says, I need to look at Mekton. Been looking for a mech game that has some good social rules as well. Most of what I see is very combat mech oriented, and these then ignores the personal level, which I think is the opposite of what most mech shows do. Oh, you need to watch Praxis show. Courier says, Force and Destiny in Star Wars FFG does that very well. There are many different styles of lightsaber combat, for example. Oh, nice. And the dice system allows for some really cool back and forth between players GM about what success means and looks like. Yeah. I didn't even have the language at the time in many cases. Yeah. And I think, and the thing is, there are people that we would now call non-binary, but they often call themselves something different, right? Like that term non-binary was just not popular. Gender fluid, gender queer, other terms, there were other terms for people who are not non-binary, who were non-binary, but they weren't the same term. And it's also a different identity. I would say that genderqueer and non-binary are not actually the same at all. Having hung out with lots and lots of genderqueer people in the 90s, it's not the same identity. And I know a bunch of non-binary people now, and they're totally different identities. They're not the same at all. And so having a genderqueer person is not the same thing as having a non-binary person. But in the same way that actually a queer person in the 90s is actually just not the same as a queer person now either. Those are totally different identities. Queer, 90s queer and like 2020s queer are just totally different identities that are not the same at all. So, but of course the word queer is the same word, so we don't necessarily recognize how the identity has changed quite a lot in the last 30 years. And so just kind of recognizing that there are identities that existed then that don't exist now, or that are sort of dying out, and there are identities that exist now that didn't exist then, which is hard for people because people want to imagine that the identity they have always existed, but that's just not true. True, one gay bi character, forgot about that. I'm also realizing I'm not fooled as easily anymore when I was 10 years ago, the way Starbuck got the Raider to fly. Oh, yeah. I think one of the big problems is non-binary is an umbrella term for a lot of things. Yeah. Yeah. It's an umbrella term for a lot of things. But trans is also an umbrella term for a lot of things, right? Like, it's like, what is the umbrella term you're using and what is included in that umbrella and how has that changed over time? But it is also a specific identity. There are people who are like, my identity is non-binary, right? And that is a specific identity. So like but it's just a different identity. Like it comes from a different, which is not a judgment of good or bad. It just is what it is. It just comes from a different, basis of understanding reality, like understanding what the reality is. It's just a very different, it's just very different. And it's just, yeah. It's both an umbrella and it's specific. And that becomes tricky, right? Does anyone hear the Becky Chambers books, the Wayfarer series? No, I don't know them. And I kind of think that you have the identities that you need for the moment you live in. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that clearly, because we have non-binary now and we don't have genderqueer as much, like genderqueer is not as much a thing as it used to be, that in the 90s we needed genderqueer and in the now we need non-binary. You know what I mean? Like, I think that the terms we use reflect where we are in this moment in society, and that makes those terms good, right? For those people who need them, right? Like, if genderqueer were working for everybody now, people would still use the term, but they don't so much because it's clearly not working for people today. Although it did work for people then, it doesn't mean, just because it doesn't work now, doesn't mean that it's a bad term and that it's bad, right? It just means that it did work that was important to people in the 90s, and people in the 2020s have different work that they need done. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not mad at it. I just recognize that things are different, and that and then to sort of like acknowledge that if somebody's going with something that, like, the older term is not bad, the newer term is not bad, they just are doing different work for people. That's all. What is the specific? Someone who is open in their... well, some people who are non-binary do not identify as trans. Some people do. Are we talking about non-binary as the term? I guess I'm trying to say that as trans and gender non-conforming people, we really struggle with even agreeing on common vocabulary sometimes. Or more like the vocabulary's just changed over time. Do you know what I mean? All right, dear, going back to watching Kindred Spirits. Ooh, nice. But I do... Yes, please. We should Zoom. That was the only problem I was... Oh, yeah, I see. Yes. Oh, well, you know, transgender started off as a specific term, not as an umbrella term. It was not an umbrella term at first. It was in the beginning. So it actually went through a couple different iterations. There was like an earlier version of transgender from the 60s, which is a little bit different, but the way we came into the term happens in the 80s. Popularized by a woman named Virginia Prince. She did not invent the term. It was being used beforehand, but not in the same way. But when it comes back, it was not an umbrella term. It was specifically a term that was used... well, Virginia Prince thought that transsexuals were bad and also cross-dressers. She didn't like either one of them. She thought they were, like... not great, and she didn't want to be associated with them. She didn't like transsexuals, didn't like cross-dressers. Like, for her, cross-dressers were men who would cross-dress, but they didn't live full-time. And she was like, that's not me. And what is that? Transsexuals were people who wanted to get medical intervention, and she thought that was stupid. So she was a woman who lived full-time as a woman, but she did not want medical intervention. So she claimed the term transgender to describe specifically people who lived full-time in a gender that was not the one that they were assigned at birth, but that did not want medical intervention, which she didn't actually approve of. So the term transgender started as a term that was a to separate you from either transsexuals or cross-dressers or transvestites or drag queens, right? It was a term to show a difference between the us and the them. So it was a very specific identity in the 80s. And I'm reading Whipping Girl at the moment, so I have a lot of thoughts on this area. Oh, I love Whipping Girl. Whipping Girl is one of my favorites. And I got to interview Julia Serrano. I invited her to come to the American Musicological Society because she was in a band, Bite Size, and talk about, because I'm sort of like a transgender expert in musicology, and so I get to go and invite people. And so I invited her to come to talk, and that was a great talk. It was wonderful. And we talked about her music and also her work. It was good times. It was excellent. She's and I know that she's not popular with the youngins, but she, I think, is brilliant, and I love her work. She's amazing. She is smart. She's kind. She says things, a lot of things I think are really cool. I've been able to interact with a lot of like pretty amazing people, I have to say. Anyway, so it originally started off as a transgender, as this term that was meant to separate you from other people. And that was the 80s. And then at the end of the 80s into the 90s, we get the rise of queer as a term. And part of that is coalition building in the face of the AIDS crisis. And so you're wanting to have these sort of larger umbrella terms that were political. So that's important that these are political terms. So queer is a political identity. So queer comes out as a way to unify people of alternate sexualities and genders who are politically radical. So gay men, lesbians, bisexuals, trans people, et cetera, right? It's this umbrella term that is very specifically, but also some straight people too. It's a very specifically an umbrella term for radical politics and a particular kind of in-your-face aesthetic. So people would say things like, oh yeah, that guy, he's gay, but he's not queer, right? Or that woman, she's a lesbian, but she's not queer. That person's bi, but they're not queer, right? So queerness, there were a lot of people who would be LGBT who would not be considered queer in the 90s because they were not politically radical, because queer was oh my gosh, Courier, young queers don't like lots of people. Like they don't like her, they don't like Kate Bornstein. Absolutely. Basically that like most of the young queers don't like the next gen older. They tend to find them not great. So like it's a radical political identity that sometimes included some straight people, usually kinksters. Like they're like kinksters were often, depending on the kinksters, would be included in queer as well. But there were some gay people who would not be included in queer because they were not queer, right? Because queerness was not about sexuality completely. It was about radical politics. In the 90s, kink people would be included in queer. Depending on the kind of kink people, like if you like did secret spanking in your home in the suburbia, then you're not radically political, so you would not count as queer. But there were certainly kink people that were radical in their politics and in your face, and so they would be considered queer in the 90s. So yes, absolutely. But it depends. Again, the question is, are you radical? Are you politically radical and in your face? If you're politically radical and in your face, and you're not about respectability, and you are in a marginalized sexual or gender practice, then yes, you would be queer. So yes, there are some kinksters who would be queer. Some kinksters wouldn't, just like some gay people would, some gay people wouldn't. But then the first big trans activist group was Transsexual Menace. That was the first one. And then I think they were only Transsexual Menace for like a year or two max before they changed their name to Transgender Nation. And that was the shift from transsexual to transgender, and transgender as an umbrella term, which some older transgender people did not like because they did not want their specific identity turned into a general term. But transgender was being used as a general term similar to the way that queer was being used. Queer could be defined as anti-cis heteronormativity, which would include kink, if that's your definition of queer. Yeah. but it would have to be right, kind of radical. Schmelzer says, only tangentially related, but kink and queer talk just reminded me of this headline I saw on Twitter today. Does kink belong in Pride? We asked LGBT elders, and they asked if we were cubs. Yes, that's good. Yes. And so transgender became an umbrella term that some people did not like because they're like, we don't, like it was a specific term we didn't want it to be including everybody, but it became a term. And who counted as transgender in the 90s was different than now because it was an umbrella term that included transsexuals, of course, but also people who identified as gender queer, gender fluid, gender radical, gender fuck. There were a bunch of other gender identities that are not as popular now. There was like a bunch of identities that sort of cropped up in the 90s. Boy, crone, drag kings, butches, femmes, drag queens, a bunch of people who now people would say like, oh, drag queens aren't transgender, but like they were in the 90s because they were transgressing gender norms. So there was like a space where like a lot of people were trans in the 90s, and some of the people who were trans in the 90s are not trans now. And now some people who are trans now would not have been trans in the 90s. It just kind of depends on, again, because it was sort of like, it was like doing, there was politics in terms of like radical activist politics. Activism was really important in that moment. Kink at Pride discourse is a 4chan psyop, and baby queers fall for every time I'm so tired. Yeah, sissy, fairy, like there was just like a whole bunch of different identities, like just a bunch of different genders, and non-binary was not the term people were using so much. They were using other terms, right? Boy, sissy, just a lot of different things, and it's different now. Like it's become a different thing now than it was then. Now it's interesting that people are using the word trans as like the big umbrella term, which is causing all sorts of drama in its own way. Yeah. Phantom Roll Booth says, I think there's a frequent thread of linguistic prescriptivism in queer discourse, like when someone tried to make a queer dictionary with all the terms and their definitions. Although, as though your language doesn't depend on who you are and who you're talking to. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the thing is that so many of these terms are like identity, and people like hold on to this identity in this like really, really intense way, right? Like it becomes like so, like I see it and people, it's like this zero-sum game, you know what I mean? People, and there's something that, identity is belonging, right? And all of a sudden that term becomes everything. Do you know what I mean? It becomes everything to you. And I think also when you're living in the more radically or the more intense it is, yes. And linguistic relativity and cultural linguistics, yes, this is my field of research. And I also think about the ways in which the more embattled your identity is, the more people say that you don't even exist, the more intense you get about defining the boundaries, right? Like I think about, and we use identity terms also in medical context, and people aren't great at holding two meanings in their head, yes. But I was also thinking about, for example, I think the best example is that it took me a really long time to get diagnosed with ADHD. I only went and went to see somebody last year, but I'd been thinking about it for a little bit longer. I was like, I wonder, right? Because I talked to somebody who was describing adult ADHD symptoms, and I was like, hold on a second. But Twitter at that point in time was full of a bunch of people making a bunch of posts that went like this. ADHD is not just being distracted. ADHD is like when you can't put on a shirt because it feels like your skin is on fire. ADHD is that you can't even get out of bed or comb your hair. ADHD is serious. ADHD is like, and like the way that if you don't have those symptoms, you're not ADHD. And the thing is that made me think, oh, okay, well, I better not go to see a doctor about this because I don't want to be like a faker. But I also recognize on one level what was happening was that these are people who, for most of their life, are being told that their thing is not even real, right? People do this with depression. Depression's not just being sad. Depression is like when you can't even breathe, and they people will often go to the most extreme symptoms to prove that it's real, because we live in a society that says that it's not real at all. Like, well, I mean, everybody's depressed, right? Depression's no big deal. And you're like, no, depression is a big deal. When you have depression, real depression, your hair catches on fire spontaneously all the time. And that's depression, right? And people are like, oh, wow, oh, I suppose that is really serious, right? So there's a way in which, when society at large tells you that you do not exist or minimizes you, I think many people's reaction to that is to go to like really hard, like, no, it is the most serious. It's the, like, go to 11. And that can make it hard for people who do not have the most extreme symptoms to see themselves represented, right? There's like a lot of, thank you, Rissa. And I feel like the pick me gatekeeping, and the thing is, it's not as a moral film, but that's right. It's like, it's as a trauma response, right? It is. It's as a trauma response, and it's because they want people to take it seriously. And so they're like, no, this isn't just some like little thing. It's like a really big, massive thing. But the problem is that it's a spectrum, right? It's like when people say, and oftentimes that doesn't necessarily do what you think it will do. Like, I think about this with gayness. Like, there was a big thing people would say, being gay is not a choice. Why would anybody choose to be gay? Like, being gay is like the worst thing that has ever happened to me. And if I could not be gay, I wouldn't be gay. It's torture. It is suffering. It is. So therefore, you must realize that this is the most suffering in the universe, and it's the worst thing ever. And that's how you know that it is not a choice. And so you really should give me civil rights, right? Because I'm suffering so much. But like, is that the way you really want? Like, sure. And it often does get you civil rights. Like, it often does get you sympathy, and people often do take you more seriously. And that is certainly true. But it also then has people think, well, if we could cure it, that would be better, right? Like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, right. With me, with a minor CP and low dysphoria, I almost always take it lower to avoid the conflict. Yeah. And like, that's just maybe not the best. Like, and there are some people for whom that is also true. Like, it is true. They do have all those very extreme symptoms. But, and it will get you civil rights, and it will get people to pity you. But it also gets people to think, oh, maybe we could like cure this with eugenics or whatever, because it's so bad. And I don't know if that's going to, in the end, get you what you want, you know? If you present the inattentive ADHD, you have a big chance to not get found out as someone having it family expressing as a hyperactive. Yeah. And so I think about that a lot. And I think about this with transness. Like, I have dysphoria. Like, and for me, this is like a medical and a physical situation. And that's true for me. But like, that doesn't mean, I mean, look, I'm going to just say a very radical thing before I read this message, because I do want to read the message. And I'm going to say a radical thing. Okay. Some people might call me a transmedicalist, which I am not. I'm just not. But for me, being transsexual, not trans, not transgender, I'm not policing anybody else's identity, is about wanting to have medical intervention, whether or not you're able to afford it or can get it or not, to alter your sex, right? So physical dysphoria is involved in being transsexual. Other people can also have physical dysphoria. I'm not talking about anybody else's identity, just the transsexual identity. I also don't think that you have to be, you can also be non-binary and also transsexual. If that is also your identity, like just being transsexual doesn't mean that you can't be non-binary. Those things are not at odds. But just sort of framing the transsexual identity as having physical dysphoria and wanting to have medical intervention to lessen that physical dysphoria, so that we can have a space to talk about medical issues and physical dysphoria. Any other identity can do whatever they want. That is cool with me. They can have dysphoria or not have dysphoria. They can do whatever they want. It's all good. That said, so for me, transsexuality is about the sexed body, right? But, right, But anybody can identify however they want. Like, I'm cool with everything else. But here's what I'm going to say. I don't care. Courier says, I agree with you 100%. I know it's very uncool to say, and I'd not say it to a cis person because I don't think they understand. I would, but then I'd say a lot more things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd say more things. But here's the thing that I want to say. The reason why I'm not a trans medicalist is because I'm not saying that having physical dysphoria makes you more or less trans. I'm not talking about trans, I'm talking about transsexuality. People can identify how they want. That's cool. And here's where I'm going to go in the end. I do not care how you identify. I think you should be able to do whatever you want to do with your body. If a person chooses to be trans, they just choose to be trans, they just decide, I want to be trans and I want to go and get some surgery, I don't care. Good on you. I do not think there should be any gatekeeping whatsoever with any kind of medical intervention, because you know what? Cis people can do whatever they want with their bodies medically. Asterisk with an exception. Two exceptions. Women don't get to have reproductive rights, which I think is a problem. Like, I support women's reproductive choices. I suppose women being able to, like, I had a friend of mine, she was a woman, she was 25 and she wanted to get her tubes tied and the doctors wouldn't let her. They're like, yeah, but you're 25 and you probably should have children. And she's like, I don't want to have children. I want to have my tubes tied. And they wouldn't let her. And I think that's jacked up. Like, if she wants to get her tubes tied, she should be able to have her tubes tied. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people should be able to do what they want with their body. The other example I was thinking, and of course, abortion rights being an issue. And then another thing I was thinking about was there are men who want to be castrated and people won't do it. People won't do it from this. They have to go to like sort of like underground, back alley castration spaces. And like if some cis dude wants to be castrated, let him be castrated. What do I care? Let him do it if he wants to do it. I mean, look, people go, there's that woman who has had plastic surgery to make herself look like a cat. If people can do that, and she did not need a psychologist's letter for that, if people can go and do that, let people do what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, and here's the thing about like policing trans stuff. In the 1950s and 60s and 70s, a lot of people who identified as cis would take cross-hormone therapy because it would make them better drag queens. All sorts of men who identified as men, who did not identify as women, would take estrogen because it made them better drag queens. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, do what you want to do. Like, we have drag queens who get surgery to look like Cher. Good for you. Like, I don't care what you do with your body. Do whatever you want with your body. And whatever it means to you, means to you. And I just don't think that people should be policed that way. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, you do you. And I don't think that if you just choose to be trans because you feel like it, good for you. I don't care. If you are not trans and you want some surgeries, good for you. I don't care. You do you. And I just feel like other people get to do what they want to do with their body. Like, I'm just not going to go and police that. And so, yeah, be informed, do what you want to do. Like, I've got tattoos. I didn't have to, like, that's a permanent change in my body. I didn't have to go and get a letter from somebody to get a tattoo. I had a friend of mine, a trans woman, who wanted to get a nose job done, and she needed to get a letter from a psychiatrist and a psychologist. I had another friend who was a cis woman, and she wanted to get a nose job done, and she just did. Nobody asked her for a letter or anything, right? So I'm like, while for me, being transsexual is about physical dysphoria, I don't think that should be a requirement to get anything done with your body that you want to get done with your body. I am fully in favor of people having bodily autonomy. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's informed consent. And this is actually part of the reason why I'm so... There's a bug on my wall, everyone. If you're going to excuse me, there's a bug on my wall. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to be right back. I have to kill this bug. It can't live in my house. Excuse me. Okay, I killed it. It's dead. It is no longer alive in my house. And I can be back. Courier says, transsexual is allowed to be a specific term. We are allowed to have specific identities. That's not gatekeeping, please. Right? Yeah, and now there are some people who are baby queers and gross who are like, what's this, like, Calvin Guerra, who's the worst. I was like, who are you? I was watching a bunch of, he's like this transmedicalist dude who's like the worst. And I had to read him, I had to listen to him on YouTube because I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I do not sound like him because he is a gatekeeping jerk. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. You know what I mean? Chromatic says, I do HRT and hair removal, but I won't do surgery due to PTSD from my jaw operations. No more, just no more. Yeah, and the thing is, I feel like people should be able to do whatever they want to do, however much, however little. You know what I mean? Like, let people do, you want to work out a lot, like, just, do what you want to, and that's cool. Like, I celebrate that and I find it joyous. I'm happy about it. That's all great for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good about it. I'm going to read this, and then there's a thing I do want to tell you, though, that's on this topic. To D-Tran from C. Mostly. Subject, various observations on the Argosy's rate of export with a reprimand. Mr. Tran, who is this? What is this person's name? I don't know. Mr. Tran, are you aware of the concept of relativity? This is a rhetorical question. I'm aware that Spacer's Choice training does not include business philosophy in its curriculum. Consider this a remedial education. Broadly, relativity is an economic idea that describes productivity in terms of relationship. For example, from your point of view, the Argosies, i.e. your freight depot, exports shipments at a perfectly reasonable rate. However, from the point of view of your enterprising colleague, i.e. S. Reynard, the Argosies freight depot exports shipments at a positively pathetic rate. If a single one of your colleagues is capable of 3 times your productivity, then relative to your colleague, the Argosy freight depot is a failure. The rubric of your success is measured relative to your fastest, strongest, and most productive colleagues. Do you understand? Please take a moment to consider the contents of this message and commit them to your heart. Furthermore, please select one of the following reprimands below and append it to your permanent record. A. The quality of your work is unacceptably low by Spacer's Choice standards. B. The quality of your work is unacceptably low relative to that of your colleagues. C. By receiving an official reprimand on your permanent record, you have violated the Spacer's Choice Code of Conduct, which will result in an official reprimand. Work fortifies the spirit. C. Mostly. Let's look at these outgoing messages. To S. Reynard from D-Tran, efficiency. Buddy, I don't understand how you manage to log 3 times the number of shipments I do out of that miserable shack you call an office, but you need to cut it the fuck out. Mostly's been poking at the Argosy ship rate numbers again, and now he's starting asking why Louie and I can't pack as quickly together as you can alone. I'm thinking maybe I should tell him you're dipping in the supply of the prototype Adrenatime? I don't think he'd like that, do you? Shit, maybe you are. If that's the case, well, maybe you ought to lend me and Louie a hand when we load up the next haul of test subject corpses. Corpses, that's a bad sign. Get yourself a real good view of what Chem's wonder drug does. That seems bad. Let's look at our messages, archive messages. There's just one from El Velasquez. To Dominic Tran. Dom, you gotta help me out. The Monarch delivery's gone MIA, and now the big guy at corporate is messaging my personal terminal looking for answers. Not Mostly, not Goodfellow. That seersucker, suit-wearing motherfucker from Byzantium, Bancroft. Your kid cousin still works at Cascadia, right? Do you think he could hoof it over to Cellar Bay and just, I don't know, poke around at the port, see if it's there? The shipment ID's Z42ML8TXY, the transport we packed last week. I know it's a lot to ask, and you know how I feel about begging for handouts, but I swear to the law, if I looked out my door and that Bancroft guy'd be there in the street, slapping a wrench against his palm like a mob boss in one of those bootleg serials from Groundbreaker. Please, man, you know how fond I am of my kneecaps. Okay, all right. So, we got some info. So, but I do think... Hello? Hi. How are you?
Energy efficiency is its own reward.
Oh, thanks. I guess we're friends, so that's cool. So this is not the main spot, but like the Sprat Shack's like an alternate spot. Let's see what we can find here. So anyway, I think it's really important, while I support everybody identifying however they want to identify because life is too short. Do you know what I mean? And also, like, let people, like, find words that mean things to them. That's cool. I do think it's important for us to think about how we describe our identities, and sometimes we have to be critical of that. And we have to think about, are the ways that we describe our identities really the best way to do it? Does it do what we want it to do? Does it mean what we think it means? We should maybe think about that, right? Because sometimes there are implications for the ways that we describe our identity that work, but are not great. And this becomes a tricky thing because everyone's like, don't police my identity. And I was like, well, I'm not policing your identity. I'm asking you to think about some stuff. I'm Bara Garwin. How are you, Bara Garwin? And there is a current trend in describing transness that I do not like how it's being described, and I think it's problematic. But I will also freely admit that there are some folks in my circle that also describe things in problematic ways that I also don't like. So it's not like I'm saying only one person's got some problematic stuff going on. There are a lot of people who've got some problematic stuff going on, and I'm just asking people to think a little bit, oh, nice, about the terms they're using, the rhetoric, because sometimes it doesn't do what you think it does. Language which is only meaningful to you, says Phantom Roll Booth, which is not current to someone else, isn't language, it's a code. Once a year I do an ID update, because I was thinking about, so also people sometimes don't read villains, bad guys, the opposition. What I mean by that is a lot of people talk about TERFs. TERFs are gross. That's true. Oh, hello. I'm going to put this away for a moment. Also, I'm going to save. Because we've got, like, you know. Today, by the way, was not a lot of gaming, a lot more talking, but it happens. So people talk about TERFs, right? People talk about TERFs. But my question is, how many of them have actually read The Transsexual Empire? Have they read it? Sure, we will chat. I just want to see what else is here first. The thing is, it's really hard to fight against somebody whose stuff you haven't actually read and whose arguments you don't actually understand. And TERFs, you know, make things like they're a piece of work, but at the moment, there's a lot of dismissing TERFs without actually understanding their arguments. And somebody like Janice Raymond is not stupid, right? She's not unintelligent. She's not...
All right, inspection time. Look at my eyes for as long as you can without blinking. Starting now.
Okay,
Good.
sure.
Look up. Now look down.
Phantom Rollbooth says, why give a TERF the escape hatch of you misrepresented my position? If you want to pin them to the wall, you need to know where they stand first. Absolutely. Absolutely. But also, Janice Raymond has some good points initially, or good concerns, or I don't even know. She has concerns. She has concerns that I think you have to take seriously so that you can then counter them or deal with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so I'm going to look up. I'm going to look down.
You're doing swell.
Sure.
Now, name and occupation.
Alex Hawthorne, ne'er-do-well.
Good enough for me. You're cleared to pass.
Thanks.
That was a sanity check.
Okay.
If you had changed like the others, it'd be in your eyes.
Oh.
You'd also be drooling, cursing, and making a mess of the place. Welcome to the Sprat Shack.
Thanks.
You can head on downstairs.
Okay. So, for example, a lot of the ways in which some of the youngins talk about gender identity is exactly how Janice Raymond talks about gender identity. Right? So, it's the same argument about where gender identity comes from. And I feel like you should probably know that. Like, if you are in a new current space and you are defining transness in the same way that Janice Raymond is defining transness at its base. You should know that and figure out how to make sure that you do not support her arguments in the ways that you're talking about yourself, in the same way that I do not want to support Calvin Guerra when I'm talking about myself. I want to make sure that nobody thinks that I think like Calvin Guerra, right? So it becomes really... And if you don't know what her argument is, how are you going to deal with it, right? Like, she is super anti-transmedicalism. Like, she thinks transmedicalism is really, really bad. So when you are against transmedicalism, make sure that you are not supporting Janice Raymond. You know what I mean? And like, and it becomes a thing where, and I say this all around, like, there are people who are transsexuals who say things about their identity which I do not think you should be saying. That's my opinion. But like, don't say things like, I was born a girl, but I knew that I was a boy because I like math and girls don't like math. You know what I mean? And like, I also like, I'm not weak and I don't cry. And I'm strong and brave. So I knew that I really was a man because, you know, I couldn't be a woman. Like, that is not a good way to describe things. Don't do that. I would say, don't do that. Don't say, like, I knew that I was always a boy because I like to play with trucks. Because here's the thing, that's sexist. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. That is not going to help you. And that is how Janice Raymond says that trans people are all sexist. So maybe don't do that. Like, don't, hey, fellow transsexuals, maybe don't use that argumentation. Like, I know that that's a good shorthand and cis people understand it, but you are just walking right into a whole bunch of turf arguments about how trans people are. And it's kind of gross. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like, so, you know, there's a way in which that may be a rhetoric of describing yourself that is legible to a bunch of people, but like, every single time somebody's like, oh yeah, I knew I was really a woman because I like makeup. Every time I hear somebody say that, I was like, oof, oh, my friends, like, you're just giving all the turfs, like, all the ammunition to like blow us out of the water. You're not a woman because you like makeup. Lots of men like makeup and lots of women don't like makeup. Can we not use that as like how we're going to define transness? Because it's not going to do what you want it to do in the long run. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to
Every day,
not be
salvagers
great.
and scrappers set out to comb the ruins and make their fortune. The ones who come back, they aren't always the same men or women who left. They change. Never for the better.
And look, and here's what I'm going to say about this. Most of the trans people I know who've said those things don't actually believe them. That's not actually true, but they know it's the only thing that cis people can understand. That when a cis person says, what do you mean you're trans? I don't get that. And you're like, well, I have this feeling of like dysphoria, this, that, like people are like, I don't get it. I don't understand. You're like, okay, imagine like, dysphoria is like if you have a pebble in your shoe and you're walking, like, but you've always had this pebble in your shoe and you get used to like having pain in your foot and you just think that that's normal and that's just how it is all the time. And it's like, you can function, but your life there's just always something off. And then at some point in time, you take off your shoe, you realize there's a rock there, and you take the rock out, you put your shoe back on, and all of a sudden you're living your life without pain anymore. And like, you can just walk around and it's amazing. That's what it's like being trans. Oftentimes they're just not going to get that. And so you're like, I like to play with trucks. And they're like, oh yeah, I get it. Right. But that's not great. Like, that works. It works. But the minute you get like a feminist who's like, wait, what? You said that you're a woman because you like makeup? Hold on a second. That's some heteropatriarchy. You know what I mean? Like, and then all of a sudden trans people are cisnormative and like, and then that's no good. So like, I'd be like, maybe try to find some other language to use besides that language, because that's not going to do the best for you. Right. And that's coming from like my side, but like the news side is, there are a bunch of people who are like, oh, I'm trans because I don't like stereotypes. Like, I've seen a number of people who write this now. They're like, yeah, I'm trans because I don't like gender norms for women, and so that makes me trans. It's like the kind of the social dysphoria thing. It's like trying to, yes, Shawl Tales. It's like trying to explain chronic pain to someone who doesn't experience it. Like, how do you explain it to them to get them to understand and take you seriously without getting into some kind of a weird space, right?
First, they get real twitchy and paranoid, shouting at folks who aren't there.
This is bad.
And they smell like they soiled themselves on account of how they soiled themselves. After that, they're gone. Nothing but animals wearing human skin.
Gross.
Seen it happen myself. It's never pretty.
Worrisome. I like your facial hair though, right? But like, there's a current mood right now, which is like, I'm trans because I don't like gender norms, right? So, like, I'm trans. I'm non-binary because men are expected to be tough, and I don't like, you know, I just don't like sexism. So I'm trans. I'm non-binary. I'm trans. Whatever. Cool. But Janice Raymond says that's why people are trans. Janice Raymond's entire argument, the entire core argument of the transsexual empire, is that people are trans not because they're trans, but because of sexism. That we live in a patriarchy that is sexist with really oppressive gender norms. And so that some people just say that they're trans because they don't like oppressive gender norms. And so, rather than fighting gender norms, they capitulate to the system by being trans instead or opting out. And in so doing, they throw everybody else under the bus. For every person who was assigned female at birth, who says, I'm trans, I'm non-binary because I don't like gender norms, so I'm not a woman, that makes it harder for every person who is a woman. Because what you're saying then is that those women do need to fit, like, basically you're making it harder for women. You're throwing people, like, you're not fighting the system. Instead of fighting the system, which you do by saying, actually, women can do whatever they want to do, or men can do whatever they want to do, right? Like, you are actually just capitulating to the system, and you're reinforcing the system, and you're making it harder to fight the system. You're not trans, you just don't like sexism, so fight sexism, right? That's her entire argument. Her entire argument is that trans people are irresponsible because rather than fighting the system, they basically capitulate to it, or they reinforce it by throwing other people under the bus. And either, if you're a trans man, you're a trans masculine, you're just transitioning because you want male privilege, right? Or if you are assigned male at birth, you're transitioning because you would rather, you don't want to fight sexism, basically, right? You know what I mean? Like you would, and when somebody says, I'm trans because I don't like sexism, you are just saying what Janice Raymond has said, all trans people are. So I just don't think that's a great way. I think there's got to be another way to describe what's going on so that you don't reinforce the idea that trans people are just basically lazy cop-outs, right? Ice Bunny says, I tried to explain it to my dad as the man person was a lifelong lie and made the trans woman suffer and unhappy. Her new identity was her since forever. Much happier now. One of the people in my company, he did flowers for us. Yeah, but some people don't experience transition that way. Some people are totally fine and then they're fine until later. And then they're like, well, hold on a second. Gender abolition arguments way too often sound exactly like that. Yeah. Hey, Kulan, how you doing? And I think this is a thing where you're like, okay, how do you deal with Janice Raymond's charge that trans people are trans because they just don't like sexism and they would rather not fight it, but just sort of get around it. And they don't care about, they're basically not good community members. Right. So, and I do think that there is a way to fight that charge, just in the same way that I think there's a way to fight the charge that, like, because like she would say that I'm just reinforcing stereotypes. So there's got to be a way for me to describe my identity without reinforcing stereotypes. I'm very specific about not using stereotypes to describe my identity because I do not want to reinforce her idea that trans people just reinforce stereotypes, because I actually don't believe in those stereotypes anyway. And so how do you then talk about gender, your trans identity being only and solely based on social things without reinforcing her idea that trans people are only doing this for that? Like, there are ways to do it, but you have to know what her argument is so that you can then not fall into it. Do you know what I mean? Trans people are themselves. I will always support. Yes. The only problem, Ice Bunny, is that some of those simple, this is the whole point of what I'm saying, is that the simple explanation is often harmful. Right? I could very easily, do the simple position. I could say, yeah, I always knew I was a man because I hate women. And that's how I knew it was a man. And that'd be super simple. I could say, hey dudes, yeah, you know, I'm a bro dude like you because because women like all sorts of girly things. And I've always hated girly things. Girly things are awful. That's how I'm a guy. And the guys are like, yeah, bro, because we like really manly, toxic masculinity. I was like, yeah, I could do that. Be super simple. But that's bad, right? Like, I do not want to contribute to sexism in order to get acceptance, right? Like, it is easy in a sexist society to utilize sexism to get people to accept your identity. But I think that's a bad idea, right? Like, and I choose not to do that, and I do not want to contribute to the harm of other people in order to get my identity accepted. You know what I mean? Yeah, sometimes oversimplification makes things difficult, and yes, absolutely. And that, by the way, is what Janice Raymond, like foundational TERF, her main argument is that trans people make things harder on women and everybody else by basically reinforcing sexism. And I know that because I've read her book. Many people are like, oh, TERFs are awful because they just hate trans people and they just don't believe we are who we are. It's like, that is not the full argument. The full argument is actually much, much broader. And you cannot counter them if you don't actually know what their argument is. And so, like, it's really important for me to know really what they're saying, like what the actual concerns are, so that I can be like, okay, look, your argument does not work because it is based on the idea that all trans people are gender normative after transition, which is not true. It's based on these ideas and these ideas, and these things don't work for these reasons. This is not what's like. You have to actually know the actual argument if you want to counter it, basically. Yeah. Sometimes when people are asking you to dumb it down further, they're just looking for ways to get you to dehumanize yourselves or others. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is the Sprat Shack, the most remote watering hole in the system. Rule number 1, no fighting. Rule number 2, wipe your feet on the way downstairs.
Got it.
We're the only hospitable place on this rock. I want to keep it that way. That's why we have rule number 3. When people change, they stay outside, where they belong.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, let me ask you something else.
Just don't ask me to dance.
Well, I was going to ask you to dance. Bummer. So I just think we have to, and it's hard because society is transphobic and sexist, so you have to sort of communicate with them. But I just think it's really important to be very careful that when we're communicating, like, I don't want to, when I communicate, I want to make sure I don't throw other people under the bus, that I don't contribute to harm in order to sort of make myself, legible. And that becomes just important. I don't want to dehumanize myself or others. And to be aware of that becomes important, right? And people do this all the time, not just with trans stuff. Like, there are women I knew in the Army who would throw other women under the bus so that they could get accepted by sexist dudes. And that was bad. Like, that was bad. They got accepted, but everybody else had a much harder time. And maybe don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's about being really, really thoughtful and mindful about the fact that you're also part of a community as well as an individual, and that some of the things that you might be doing that may be good for you short term may not be good for you long term, and also may not be good for other people. And so how can you articulate your identity in a way that is helpful? Because I will tell you what, you don't even have to go as far as TERFs. I know a lot of people who are feminist and who are sympathetic, but they believe, and I've had people tell me this more than once, they believe that if there were no sexism, there would be no trans people. TERF is trans exclusionary radical feminist. They're not feminists. They are people who are anti-trans, and they're very big in the UK right now, Australia, also US. But there are a lot of people who honestly and truly believe that if there were no sexism, and that if people could do whatever they wanted to do, there would be no transgender people, right? Because for them, they believe that transness is fundamentally about society and social norms, about social oppression. So, and I've spent a lot of my life being like, no, look, it is not about social oppression. That is not what I'm trans. Like, this is, but then now there's a bunch of people being like, yes, it's just about social oppression. So I'm like, ooh, this is tricky. This is a tricky situation. That's, right? Because there are people who really believe that all we have to do is just get rid of sexism, and then there just would be no trans people. Because they fundamentally believe that I am trans because I would rather be a man and have male privilege than be a woman and be treated sexist. And that's just not the case, right? That's just not true for me. That's just not true for me at all. And it's really hard to convince them that I would still exist in a future with no sexism. So that's, and now we're getting people who are reinforcing that idea, and that's very difficult. That's very difficult. What do you do around here, my friend?
Bouncer, bodyguard, law enforcer. I make sure the Sprat Shack gets only the highest caliber of clientele.
Oh.
And I thought this place was going to be fun.
Well, I hope you look the other way just this once.
We get a lot of brand-loyal corporate types, and a lot of cutthroat freelancer types. Both sides have their share of dirty scoundrels. And I hate dirt.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Hey, Moswolf. And so, just like basically, I just think we have to be careful about how we describe things to other people, because some of the descriptions we have are not going to be useful long term. Which is not to say, because again, I really believe you should be able to do whatever you want to do for whatever reason you want to do, really do whatever you want to do. But the question is, when you're making a justification of who you are, I think it's important to be careful how you what language you use to other people. That's all. Kulan says, sometimes I think I must be really stupid when it comes to this type of discussion. Since my view is you're a human, good enough for me. That would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be nice. Courier says, it's also unreasonable for every trans person to have to be an ambassador. I know that's the reality, but yeah. But then some people are making videos online saying things and then writing big blog posts and making big statements, and then all of a sudden they're taking on an ambassador role and policing other people. So then when you take on the ambassador role, I would just say you should maybe think about what you're saying. Caitlyn Jenner, for example, like, you're making yourself an ambassador. I would recommend you rethink some of the things that you're saying.
This is a sublight bar, so most of our regulars come to plunder the old labs. The facility's locked up behind miles of red tape, so progress is slow. A lot of time to drink and reevaluate, then venture out and try again.
Okay. So what do you know about Gorgon?
Something bad happened here. Spacer's Choice was developing chemicals. The kind with nasty side effects.
Sounds bad.
Marauders outnumber the rest of us 10-1. Either they came from Gorgon, or something draws them here. I don't know which is worse. This place is under a dark cloud, stranger. That's all I know. If you want the history of the Sprat Shack, talk to Lex behind the bar.
Okay, well, thank you.
If you're heading downstairs, order something sweet.
Oh, I will. So we're in an actual bar. This is exciting. I can't steal anything here, it looks like. Irritating. But that's okay. That's okay. I want you to know...
Smell that? Cheap whiskey and stale cigarettes. My kind of place.
I just want to note for the record that we have gotten a lot of gaming done.
They've got it on tap.
Not true. Oh, I think it's an A, ambassador. Way too many people talk ambassadors on the internet, but not enough think like one on the... Ambara Garwin. Yes. That's all I wanted to say. That comment of yours is brilliant, Ambara Garwin. A lot of people act like ambassadors, but they don't think like one. Being an ambassador is a skill?
You're a humbug, Trixie, and worse, a thief.
What?
I can't steal what's lawfully mine, you tangle-footed dimwit.
Great gaming today. I enjoyed it immensely. Well, look, we got a whole bunch of... Look, this is my plan. My plan is to talk to the people in this room and then stand in front of that elevator and then log off. That is my plan. God forbid people take time to worry about themselves being the baseline, courteous human being before they worry about other people. I know, right? And Barker, I love that comment. Trooper, I come here for a reason. I know. I'm here for a reason too.
That was my salvage, Trixie.
uh-oh.
You had no right to it then, and you've no right to it now.
I'm gonna let them talk.
I risked my life sneaking around Marauders to claim that wreck. And I didn't see your name on it.
Now you've done it. Eat fist.
Uh-oh.
All right, that's enough. This is a family establishment. You want to make a mess? You make it outside.
But this was personal, Lex. It's a question of salvage. That wreck was gonna make me a fortune.
Okay, well, yep, okay. Technically that's business, not personal.
That's what I've been trying to tell him, but he won't listen.
It's the same fight every day.
Really?
5 years we've been at this.
Oh.
And we still can't agree on how to properly tag salvage.
Oh.
Now you two
Okay.
listen. This is my place.
Oh.
While you're in the Sprat Shack, you'll sit quietly or I'll forbid you to come here at all. Is that understood?
Here, here. Boys are for drinking. The poor decisions that result are better left outside.
Yes.
Fair's fair. I'll have a stout, and we'll settle this later on our own terms.
It's no good to leave a fight unresolved. If I don't do something, these two are gonna be at each other's throats.
What do you propose?
Would you do me a favor and weigh in as a third party? I
Okay.
can use an unbiased set of eyes on the problem.
Sure.
And an outsider like you fits the bill.
Okay. Fine, I'll give it a whirl.
Freddy, Trixie,
I'll
go on and
meddle.
make your case to the generous.
I like some meddling.
I'll start, seeing as I'm the one who's been most wronged in this equation.
State your names for the tavern.
Oh, very formal.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy the Scab.
Oh,
Freelancer for sublight salvage and shipping. Same as my father before me.
I see.
Junkyard Trixie,
Mm-hmm.
also a salvage freelancer.
Mhm.
Though, I've been at it longer than Freddy.
So,
Uh-huh.
just up the road and due east of here,
Mhm.
there's a shipwreck lodged in the mountainside, right?
Yes.
I staked my claim on that wreck. Then I wandered in for a drink. An hour later, Trixie swaggers in bragging about her salvage. Ugh, the nerve of some people.
Also, where exactly is this salvage? Because I might just take all of it. I'm sorry. How did you mark the claim?
I climbed on top of it and called out in my loudest voice, "Finders keepers!"
Uh-huh. Is that legal, Lex?
I don't know about legal, but it's legit by sublight standards. Assuming anyone was around to hear it, which we can't know for sure.
Interesting.
Someone must have heard me. They just ain't brave enough to step forward and admit it.
Interesting. Chromatic says, to the gamers, I'm sorry. I've been waiting for him to open up. What he said was reassuring to me and has me thinking. Lido SP is a great communication of ideals and trustworthy. I'll go things. No. I'm going to wrap up really soon. It's just, because here's the thing. I just think we have to really, we have to confront the challenge, right? We have to confront the challenge. Janice Raymond thinks that trans people are basically being used by the medical industry to like make them money. Like she's got a lot of stuff going on, right? And we have to. It reminds me actually of Catherine McKinnon, her book on sex, right? Her talk on sex. People want to basically like dismiss Catherine McKinnon. They're like, oh, she says that all heterosexual sex is rape, so like she's ridiculous. But I think you actually have to read what she says, and then you have to figure out a way to like work through it, right? Her point is that in order to have true consent, you must have equality, right? True consent cannot happen when there's unequal power. Under patriarchy, women do not have equal power to men, and so therefore, women cannot truly give true consent because there's always some sort of power imbalance there. So for her, she says, you can't have true consent that way. Now, it's easy to be like, oh, that's ridiculous. So stupid. Which, like, you know, those are my feelings at first. But I was just thinking about how the ACLU is arguing that people in prison, in jail, cannot truly consent to plea bargains because they're being held in jail and there's all this sort of, like, there's a power dynamic and undue pressure. So I don't like what Catherine McKinnon has to say about how sex works. But I can't just say, oh, you're ridiculous. You have to actually deal with the argument, which is that to have true consent, you have to have equality. So women cannot truly consent under patriarchy. You have to deal with that argument. You have to deal with it. You have to work through that argument and figure out how to counter that. You can't just dismiss it out of hand. You have to figure out how do you work that? How do you do that, right? And you have to think about this. And now, Courier, I would say that she doesn't think, Janice Rubin doesn't think that trans women are delusional only. She thinks everybody in society has been, she doesn't think that trans women are any more delusional than any other person in society. She thinks that they decided to capitulate, not fight, right? So she's like, she thinks they're being class traitors, right? She thinks trans people are not more delusional than other people, but that they're class traitors. That's what she thinks. Transgender Empire is a $600 paperbook. Oh no, you can get it for free. Chromatic. If you want it, I can tell you. I can tell you where to get it. I can tell you where to get the book. Don't worry about it. If you want it, DM me. I will tell you where to get it. Embar Garwood says, I mean, there's an element of truth, but it oversimplifies. Right. So the question is, right, it oversimplifies. So if you want to counter her argument, you can't just be like, oh, that's a stupid argument. You have to say, yeah, don't pay transphobes. No, there are a bunch of people that I will not give money to. I got you if you want it. I got you. But I would say that how do you then make an argument that will counter what she says? And I think you'd have to probably think about macro versus micro, right? You have to think about like individual versus larger, and that there is, right? Because she's talking about system and structure, but an individual man and an individual woman are not systems, right? So I feel like you can probably start making an argument about macro versus micro consent. And the prisoner in a prison is dealing with a macro system. Like he's not dealing with one, or she's not dealing with one individual person. So that's different, right? That person is needing to consent to a plea bargain with a system. And that's very different from two individual people having a conversation. So I feel like you have to be able to find a way to actually take seriously and then deal with the argument so that you can actually refute it well. If they cannot consent, they cannot form any opinion or make any decision at all. We should probably keep them locked away. No, because they do not believe that people who cannot consent don't have thoughts. They just think that they're oppressed, right? And people who are oppressed need liberation, right? So like her point is that if you're oppressed, you need liberation, not further oppression, right? Wizard says that argument about women being unable to really consent has a bit of truth to it, but assumes that women are ignorant of their situation, have no agency, and also that people cannot have different roles in different situations. Exactly, right? So for me, it's like, okay, to just say, Catherine McKinnon's a man-hater, her argument is just ridiculous, it's not going to help. Instead, you've got to do something like what Wizard Styles is doing. Like, okay, well, hold on. We have to actually think about the fact that people have some form of agency, even within larger structures, that people are aware of their situation, that make negotiations, that everybody's negotiating at all times, and you can make different, so you actually have to make the argument that takes, but to do that argument, you have to take what Catherine McKinnon said seriously as an argument. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to actually read what she says, take it seriously, and find ways to engage with it, right? Like in the same way that when you talk to Janice Raymond, you have to find ways to engage with it. Like, and I would say, for example, for non-binary people and for trans people who define their identity as being based in not liking gender norms, which is what Janice Raymond says, if that is your identity, you need to figure out how to to counter Raymond's claim that that's the only reason why you're trans, and that if we didn't have sexism, you wouldn't be trans anymore. And rather than just being trans, you should fight sexism, because that's better for everybody. So how do you articulate your identity? And I would probably say, personally, not being non-binary, not being a person for whom, it's society. Like society was not why I'm trans. My transness has to do with society. But I think my argument would probably be that you can fight a system both within it and without it, and that you can fight sexism and also be trans. Like that those things are not mutually exclusive. And that there is some work that can only be done outside of the system, as well as some work that can be done only be done inside the system, and that we need people in a coalition together if we truly want to fight sexism. So that being trans is not actually opting out or giving up or contributing to. I mean, some trans people do, of course, just like some cis people do, but it's not being trans is not fundamentally about cis normativity. It's not fundamentally about deciding to like just not be involved so you don't have to do the fight. That actually you can still do the fight, and sometimes you can do that fight in ways that you couldn't otherwise, right? So like, but to make that argument, you actually have to know what she's arguing, right? And so, for example, I would say that there is some anti-sexism work that I have only been able to do because I'm trans. That if I had not transitioned, there are things that I could not have done that I can do now. I get access to male locker rooms and certain kinds of conversations, and so I can make certain kinds of arguments about sexism and have people listen to me that I could not have done had I not transitioned. So I can do anti-sexism work that I can only do because I'm trans, right? So her argument is basically that fundamentally that what we do is basically reinforce sexism rather than fight it. And I can't just say, you're a TERF. Like, I actually need to address the argument about sexism, and I can, do you know what I mean? And I can also say, so I think that I just think it's really important to actually read and take seriously the arguments of the people who are arguing against you, so you can actually counter the argument, right? Like actually counter the argument, right? Like intersectionality is super crucial. And then also like, yes, I mean, it's just super crucial, right? And, yeah. And so I think that being dismissive is not useful, but I also think really knowing the argument helps me not fall into language that is going to be a trap that will like basically, let me see, what is your side of the story, Trixie?
When I found the shipwreck, there were no salvage mark. See, the whole area was teeming with bloodthirsty marauders. So I snuck around and added my tag, clear as day, so no drunken idiots could claim the salvage out from under me, Freddy.
Ooh.
For the record, when I heard the marauders coming, I left. Trixie must have set her mark down after me.
No speaking out of turn, but I'll allow it this once.
I kept my mouth shut during his story. He should have the courtesy to return the favor.
That's fair.
Anyway, that's my story, sir.
And the thing is, PH, the thing about this, about like you say, yeah, make them work to dream up new justifications for their hatred. But here's what I'm thinking. One, I think that some of those people can be convinced otherwise. I think that some of them, if you give them a good argument, will change their mind. Some of them will not. But right now, TERFs are getting legislation passed to harm trans people. They're taking over the UK right now. It's really bad. And they do that by convincing people who are not yet TERFs to become TERFs. And just attacking TERFs without giving any kind of actual argument is going to be a problem because we won't get those people who haven't decided yet. Like, I want to make sure that those people who are like, oh, I don't know how I feel or think about this, hear a good argument, right? When some TERF says, hey, trans people are sexist, and my response is, you're a poo-face, TERF, that is not going to convince the person in the middle who doesn't quite know what's up yet. Instead, I want to say, no, actually, that is not what's going on. Let me tell you what's going on. Not for that one person who's full of hate and who I'm probably not going to convince, but for all those people who haven't thought about it yet, who are ignorant and don't know anything. I want to make a really good argument so I can get them to understand and be my allies, and so that fewer people become TERFs. Because right now, the TERF population is growing, and that...
I drew an X in the dirt with my toe.
You drew an X in the dirt with your toe? Couldn't the marauders have walked over it by now, or the wind blown it away?
Wouldn't surprise me in the least, but that doesn't mean it ain't mine.
In all my years, I've never heard a more contentious argument.
Yeah,
I don't
chromatic.
envy your shoulders for bearing the weight of responsibility. You've heard it from them both. So, who gets the salvage?
It's trans exclusionary radical feminist. They started in the 1970s with a group of 3 or 4 women, Janice Raymond, Mary Daly. There were a couple of them. Australia, Sheila Jeffries. Thank you, Rissa. They are not, they're not really feminist, and they basically really hate trans people, and are pretty awful towards them, and have done a lot of things to make trans people's lives dangerous and get them killed. And they kind of died out for a while. They were really big in the 70s, and then they weren't really anywhere in the 90s. And they have come back this last decade with a vengeance. They're really big again. I don't know why they have come back so big, but in the last 10 or so years, they've just exploded, and they're worse. The culture war, yeah, it comes in waves, but like they just showed up again. And by the way, these idiots don't know how to tag salvage, so I rule in no one's favor.
That ain't no kind of fair.
Yes, it is.
He ain't even from around here.
I don't care.
Lex.
Here's a 6-pack on the house, plus your fee.
Thank you.
Maybe now we'll finally get some peace around here for a change.
Thank you. Does this happen often?
A little too often, if you ask me. That's the sublight way. Anything worth doing is worth fighting over.
Moswolf says social media doesn't help, I'd assume. I think you're right, Moswolf, in the sense that there just weren't, first off, there were never a lot of TERFs. There were There were always radical feminists who were like, who are those TERFs? They're terrible. Like, there were a lot of women in the 70s who were like, none of that. They were never a lot of TERFs. Their numbers were always sort of small. They were loud, but numbers were always small. I think that they have been able to amplify their size through social media. I think they look bigger than they are, and they're getting influence, but I feel like they're using social media to make themselves bigger and to recruit more people, just like a lot of radicals. When my classmate transitioned, it was we love and support you, and it's so nice to see him become a happier person. Only sad things, my class is scattered all over the world, so gathering is not happening. Yeah. I watched them blow up in the UK, got attacked for pointing out to Brits, but now, bam. Yeah, I mean, you were right, Chromatic. Social media, says Courier, has made it worse, but there was also way less media standards these days. Yes. And most media is owned by a few far-right conglomerates. Yes, absolutely. And I was reading an article about there's this objectivist movement that happened in the UK, which a bunch of like sexist dudes who have basically co-opted and signed on to a lot of the TERF stuff for creepy reasons. So there's like apparently other factors going on for the rise of TERFdom in the UK that have to do with not radical feminists at all, but like this kind of weird objectivist movement that happened with a bunch of dudes in the UK in the last 20 years. So like there's a lot of stuff going on that I think is odd. Makes sense. Plenty of people issues that seem huge, but just a few people making a lot of noise. But they can now make themselves even bigger. You know what I mean? It's like with all the incels, right? Like I don't think there are a lot of incels, but gosh, are they like having an outsized social impact based on their ability to sort of command social media. Yeah. It's awful how TERFs are increasing in the UK, mainly due to a certain British author as a big platform. Yes. There's also a gender essentialist nonsense that people call TERFy, but because the weird thing about TERFs is that some TERFs are gender essentialists, but some of them are gender abolitionists. Like some TERFs don't believe in gender at all, and they don't like trans people because they think trans people do believe in gender, right? Like some people are gender essentialists, but some of them don't believe in gender at all. Like it's a very complicated thing. Yeah. I'd assume that more visible trans people being accepted would also lead to a higher number of TERFs, more accepting people hopefully, but also more TERFs. Yeah. But it's pretty recent too, so like it's interesting to me. They aren't a majority, but they are a loud minority, and in a way that a lot of other minorities can't be. Yeah. By the way, I'm glad to be of service.
Come and chat if you're ever feeling thirsty.
Thanks.
We could always go back and rile him up again later.
We could.
Smooth talking, Cap.
Thanks. Hey, I like having these people hanging out with me. So they're there. We could talk to them more, but maybe we don't. I think we do need to talk to everybody.
We're all friends here, even when we ain't.
Sweet.
Seen any good salvage around?
Nope. I don't think I'm going to get anything interesting from them.
As soon as I sober up, I'm heading back to the ruins.
Sweet. Salvagers. All right. What I want to do is talk to Lex. Some bar patrons. All right. I'm just getting the lay of the land.
As soon as I sober up, I'm headed.
Oh, a smuggler.
Agent on the ground?
Oh.
Sorry?
I've been sent to meet a certain someone about a certain piece of merchandise.
Oh. Well, that seems interesting.
A secret code phrase.
Can't help you. I'm just here to drink.
Interesting.
That's the code phrase. It is you.
Quiet down. You're making a scene.
Oh. Hey. How are you, smugglers?
Don't forget to close your tab before you head out.
You're not going to talk to me, are you?
As soon as I sober up, I'm heading back to the ruins.
Whatever. I like your lipstick. What do we have here? We have a lot of walking, so I'm not going to go there right now. Okay. We're going to stand and raving drunk.
Where am I anyway? This doesn't look like Byzantium.
You're super drunk. I'm going to stand right in front of Lex because we're going to talk to her. We're going to talk to her when we start the game in 2 weeks, probably. Let me come over here and tell you about the end of the story, the end of the deal, let me wait back. Did I save? I'm gonna just make sure I save. Save. I'm paranoid about saving. People, I'm paranoid about it. Save. Yes. All I know is the UK has become very scary and that feels not great. I'm really worried about it too. What's happened has been so predictable and so rapid, it just seems like we're losing. Right, and of course one of the problems is that, like, people who are not really right-wing conservatives are like, ooh, TERFs? Yeah, we'll use them, because they don't, like, there are people who don't want women to have equal rights, and they want to, you know, attack people, and they will. That's what they'll do. So, you know, it's distressing, and we have to be vigilant. And that's why I think a lot of TERFs, not a lot of TERFs, but there are TERFs who I think they don't understand that what they're doing is not in their best interest either. They are palling around. I'm going to turn off my PS4. They're palling around with people who don't like women. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not good for them either, but they're so short-sighted. And I worry a lot about the whole thing, to be honest. But yeah. Yes, Courier says attacking trans women is the easiest way to attack all women. Absolutely. And it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. But I believe that I believe in us. I believe in us. I do. I believe in us. So let's talk, everybody. It is 4. I went a little extra long. I'm going to go start packing. Next week on I Believe in Miracles, You Sexy Thing. Thank you. Since you came along. So I'm moving next week. Thursday, I'm picking up my U-Haul and I'm driving to Atlanta. Thursday, which means I'm not going to be streaming on Thursday and I'm not going to be streaming on Saturday because I probably will not arrive until Friday evening, and then Saturday's going to be unpacking. Sunday's going to be unpacking, getting the internet. It is my hope that I will be ready to stream the week after. It'll basically just be 1 week where I won't be streaming. So it is my hope that I'll be set up, because really I have to be set up. Like, I just need, because streaming is also work. So am I going to, Dot and I are going to be roommates. Dot and I are going to be roommates together. We have a 2-bedroom and she's going to be in one room and I'm going to be in the other room, and it's going to be like an exciting streaming house. So it's going to be exciting. And of course, the deal is that I'm only going to be in Atlanta for 6 months because I've got to go back to Massachusetts to teach. And getting a 6-month lease is not the easiest thing in the world. And so Dot and I rooming together means it's a 1-year lease. I get to be there for 6 months. And when I move out, Dot will get a new roommate. And so that's going to be exciting. And yes, so I'm really excited. So Thursday, I'm going to be packing up, and packing up now. Thursday, I'm going to be loading up and then driving to Atlanta. So next week, no streams, but if everything goes well, not next week, but the week after, I'll be back to streaming. And I have got things to talk about for July. History is but the social media of the past. I'm really excited. I'm really excited. I just hope that I can go to cafes to write. Hescape says lockdown hasn't helped the situation because a lot of people are getting their news and info from social media instead of speaking to people in real life. Absolutely. I believe the UK will get better again when it's safe for people to interact with people outside of social media. I hope so anyway. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think so too. I think not seeing people as human beings and not seeing them in person has made things worse. I will say, so we did Necrobiotic for June. For July, so City of Light and Shadow is going to start up in August, first week of August. But I've got plans for July. So my shows with Prax are starting back up again. So the Blue Rose and Witcher Roads Home will be starting up again in July. I am wanting to do something in the Foxhole for July. I have got to work out some things there, some logistics. And if I get everything's packed up, maybe I can do some of that before I move, which would be really nice. Let's hope. I'm excited for Kolos 2. So excited. I've got some reading and writing. I've got like some like logistic stuff I want to do for Kolos to get everything together. Willen has been so kind to make write-ups for season 2 and 3. And I want to get them up on our website. And I want to finish the map stuff so I can make the Kolos website go live. I would love to do that before season 4 starts. Please. I'm going to be in another show that I cannot talk about yet because it's not been announced, but it's going to be starting late July on a channel that is not mine, which is going to be cool. I just need to order some clothes for it. So there's a show. So that's going to be 3 RPGs in July, Kolos in August. There's going to be another RPG that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to run on the Foxhole. I'll be having I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a second RPG on the channel for 8 episodes starting in mid-August. There are some deck dice. I cannot say if the show in late July is a table story show. I can't say that. I would never, I'm not saying that I'm going, I would not say that I'm going to be in a table story show starting late July. I wouldn't say that. Peach is like, you might want to see a doctor with that eye twitch. Yeah, I just have this like weird eye twitch. I don't know what it's doing. Yeah. So I'm just, yeah, my beard's all blue. And the character that I'm playing in the show in, on a channel in starting late July, I have a wig that's black, but also has blue in it. So it's going to work out really well. I did not say a thing. So I have 1 month plus month to catch up on Kolos. Yes. I seem to remember talk earlier in the year, no RPGs in July because of moving and writing. Well, no RPGs in June, right? And then I'm starting stuff in the second half of July is when things are starting up. That's all. And then I'm gonna have an 8 session show on the Foxhole, probably starting mid-August, so it can be done by mid-October. And it's going to be really cool. I'm very excited. I've got to do casting and all of that. There's a bunch of stuff I have to do for it because it's going to be a little 8 thing. But yes, I may have to ask a few questions of Future Trooper. I've got an educational series idea I'm trying to figure out. Oh, ask me questions over in the Discord. I want to hear about it. Yes. Is this watch along just still a thing? Just asking because who knows what we can do in the Trooper less time. I do for July. I want to do a watch along of the documentary that I was in. I want to do that in. I'm not going to do that before I leave, but I would like to do the watch along in. So one of the things I want to do in the Foxhole for July is do this watch along of this documentary about the trans musician Billy Tipton. That'll be on Discord, and that'll probably be early July. It's going to be in July. And then any plans to reschedule AJ's Cthulhu Confidential? I want to do that definitely. We have to figure out when we can do that because I'm going to see how he's doing and what's up. Because I did all the prep for that. So I do want to do AJ's Cthulhu Confidential. Normally I do Cthulhu Confidential in the breaks between seasons. But this move happened, which has made it been a little bit awkward. So I'm going to see when it's going to come down to like when I finished unpacking. So, please note, I've got some stuff in there. What I want to do is move, unpack, get the internet all worked out. And because I'm rooming with Dot, I know we're going to have internet, and I know it's going to be good internet, so I'm not too worried about that. But I just want to make sure that everything is set up. And once that is set up, then I can go and make the scheduling for like AJ's Cthulhu Confidential, maybe an arena tournament for GURPS, and then this watch along. So I have like exciting July things that I want to do, but it will not happen the first 2 weeks of July. It's all going to happen like... Also, hey, I have to tell you all something. There are 25 of you here. There are 25 of you here. Do you want to hear a secret? I think it's not a secret. I think I'm allowed to say. Having roommates to set up internet ahead of time. I have a secret for you all. It's a big secret. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. It's a big deal. Okay, the show that I'm going to run in mid-August, the second show, like this, so like I'll be running 2 shows on the Foxhole at the same time. That's also a big deal, but I have another big deal. This is a huge deal, and I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say because one of the emails I had gave me a little bit of like a gift that I was allowed to put out there for publicity purposes. This is a big deal, everybody. It may not be a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to me, and I have only told one person so far. So only one person knows this outside of the people who are involved. So guess what? I have been cast in an improv show, and that starts rehearsals at the end of July, has rehearsals at the end of July and in August, and runs for 4 weeks in September. And I have been cast in an improv show, and so which will be streamed live, so you can all watch it. And for people like PH and folks who know this, it's Unexpected Productions, which is Cheryl's place. So Cheryl, you know the whole crew, the whole sort of Seattle improv crew. So I have been cast in one of their shows. And it's called Cupid on Mute, and it is basically a kind of an improv send-up of reality dating shows like Love is Blind, and that sort of a thing. So how's that for excitement? I mean, like I can't talk about how excited I am right now, because if I did, I think I'd probably bounce too much, and there would be like ridiculousness. But I'm really excited. I started doing theater when I was 11 years old, and I did theater a lot. And I have not done as much theater recently for so many reasons. And so being able to actually do improv again and by the way, it's going to be on Saturdays, so it's going to be UK friendly. It's going to be Europe friendly. It's like Saturdays, like 11 a.m. Pacific, Saturdays, or is it Sundays? It's either Saturdays or Sundays, but it's gonna be great. So yeah. So I just want you to know, right? I'm gonna be doing some improv, and also, you know KP, right? KP, who's in Colos, who's amazing. KP is coming to Atlanta and is going to stay in the apartment with Dot and I. And when he's there, he's going to take photographs. He's opened himself up to take photographs. And I was like, KP, would you take headshots of me? And he's going to make, hey, your turn, my turn. He's going to take headshots. And so I'm going to have some good professional headshots where hopefully I won't look like a goofball. And, so maybe we'll see. Anyway. So I just wanted to let you know that really amazing news. I'm really excited. Like it's like a big deal for me on the inside, this thing. So yeah. So I just wanted you to know that's like this amazing news, and that's going to happen in September. So with auditions, with rehearsals in August and the very, very end of July. So excited. So look, it's gonna be pretty amazing, and I'm really excited to hang out with you all. And look, we're going to do our documentary, our Billy Tipton documentary, when I get, because I have less than a week before I move. So we're going to do the Billy Tipton documentary on my Discord in July, as well as at least we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the arena, and if I can, I'm gonna talk to AJ. We're gonna see if we can do the Cthulhu Confidential, and yes, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go get some food, everybody. I have got sandwich fixins in the fridge, and hey everybody, thank you for being members of the Foxhole. Thank you for hanging out with me. Jorman says, I'm really happy for you. TTRPGs are great, but I totally understand that you miss theater. I do. Also, before I leave, my goal before I leave is to write up my after action report for May and June for the Patreon, and I always make those reports open so that anybody can read them. And am I going to just like say how Colas went, and I'm going to talk about Your Turn, My Turn, and give Your Turn, My Turn all this love in the after action report so that I can embarrass Your Turn, My Turn. But I'm going to say really kind things about Your Turn, My Turn in the after action report, which is going to come out before I leave for the end of June. So you can go to the Patreon, even if you're not a Patreon, you can read it. Yeah, so I'm really excited for all that, but I'm going to go and pack up some books right now. I'm going to eat first, and then I'm going to pack up some books. So thank you everybody for being a part of the community, for watching, for being part of Discord. Oh, and we have what do you call it? Socials, right? If you want, you can follow and subscribe to the channel if you like. You can also join our Discord. You can follow me on YouTube, which is Trooper SJP, or follow me on Twitter, which is Academic Foxhole, or you can join the Patreon, which is Academic Foxhole on Patreon, and that goes to support the shows that I'm running. And as you know, I'm going to be running a second show for 8 weeks, and that's going to be all of our goodness. So, thank you, everybody, and y'all are the best. You've given me the best Saturday. I think I'm going to be able to go and put on some music. I'm going to listen to the Indigo Girls, and I am going to pack like the Dickens. So, I will be on Discord, by the way. I'll be chatting with you on Discord. But I will talk to you all later. And so, take care of yourselves, everyone, and I will catch you on the flip side.